Bad for it.
I don't like mics. Go away.
Why?
Oh, Anna
I don't like the
brought
new
me.
layout.
Huh?
I don't like the new layout on Twitch.
I'm not gonna comment on it. That's the one that they were like, "Hey, be a beta tester," and I was like, "Okay, cool." That's what I sent you. I was like, "Yay, new toys!" No, kill it with fire. I
You
went
know
back
what
to the
sucks?
old one. I hate it so much.
I can't see the FFC dashboard anymore because of it. It will not let me go to it for some reason.
Did you try going?
I'm just opening up a chat through the normal route.
It won't let you go to the dashboard.
Yeah, it forces me into my own for some reason.
Did you try? Hang on, let me send you this. This is the URL. I don't know if this is.
If the URL got switched.
Well, I know that it switched it up on me a while back, and try that one. I don't know. By the way, did you see the YouTube video of
Nope.
Henry reading The Witcher?
Oh, really? No, I haven't
melted.
yet.
I completely melted. I'm not even ashamed to admit that.
You melted as
it
in...
was so good.
Can't even make the chat. Why?
You just let me know when I have to hit this wonderful red button on this Audacity.
Yep. Right now we're letting the chat kind of catch up a little bit and stream stabilize, and then we'll start the thing.
Alright.
Get everything going. And chat can hear us.
Hope so.
That'd be a darn shame if they couldn't.
Be a little embarrassing.
Be awkward if they didn't.
Yeah, that'd be wouldn't it be the best thing in the world?
So we'll
that link didn't work for you
nope.
either.
God, did the same thing. Yeah, I don't know why. I don't know why they won't let me view it anymore.
That's weird. Is it something that I need to do?
I don't know. But are these some of your clanmates, Dragon?
Yes, they are.
Nice.
So Sultan, I don't think his girlfriend's in the chat, but they actually live a couple blocks from me. So if I have audio issues, I'm calling him.
Nice.
And they were actually in my wedding, so.
Aww.
Let's see. Eagle is from Australia. We've been playing with him for a while.
Nice.
I don't know if I see anyone else at the moment.
Cool. Jay,
Thanks.
are you ready?
Thanks, bot. Sent. Okay. They're gonna be good.
Mikey, you can plug your own stream. Good lord.
Yeah. Do you want to jump in? What do you need me to do? Audacity or switch the layouts?
Well, she's gonna try to do Audacity with us, and
Sounds
then
good.
just have back the same. So, Paige, I'm just gonna count us down. 3, 2, 1, click, and then on the click, obviously, we'll start the recording. It
Sounds good.
Pretty easy sync up, and we're gonna leave the recording going the entire time, so it's gonna be a fairly large file at the end. So don't worry. Holy moly, pins! Thank you.
Totally just missed what was happening. Too many screens on the laptop.
He just gifts a bunch of people.
Awesome.
Thank you, pins, including some of your clanmates.
Thank you, Pens. I'm sure they'll all appreciate it.
Yes. All right, here we go. 3, 2, 1, click. Audacity should have that nice little line going.
Yep, she's going.
Awesome. Awesome. Jay, you ready to go?
Yep. Top 3 is Background recordings. Pew pew.
Choo choo.
And yep, good to go.
Topic of the week. Top 3 aspects. The overlays got.
What?
Hashtag.
Oh, yeah, I need to get around to like
Choo,
figuring out a way
choo.
to get that changed so that the top 3 shows up. I should probably figure out that, but I'm too lazy right now.
Yeah, it's over.
Hashtag.
It's over.
Pew pew. Choo choo.
Welcome to FFC Top 3, a show where we, your FFC hosts, count things down from 3 to number 1. Thank you for joining us this week, and thank you for sticking with us through our little break.
Choo
By
choo.
the way, that's my dog Buddy, who has a very cute picture on Twitter right now. But if you have a suggestion for us for top 3, be sure to drop us a note in all the usual places.
Hashtag.
This week is a
Pew
suggestion by
pew.
Blue,
Choo
our
choo.
top 3 best pieces of advice, which is kind of a nice way to
Received,
close.
not given. Received.
Received.
Still, that was a hard one.
Yes.
Still.
You
That's-
threw me
yeah.
for a loop.
Well, and that's why I was just because I don't know, like I was looking through some stuff and they're like fun questions to ask. I was like, okay, let's go down this particular rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm.
And most of them were like,
Emulation.
what is this? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I don't care about you. Go away. There was 2 of them that I think I want to do the other one next week actually, because I'm curious on it. But there was 2 that stood out. And this was one that I really liked the most. So
Sweet. Well, joining us this week, we have Miss Dragonfly, aka Paige, aka Miss Lore Extraordinaire. She's joining us in the hot seat. And are you feeling up to the challenge for this top 3 this week?
Yeah, I actually had to talk to my dad about this one. He's like, "Why are you asking me? You never listen to anything I tell you."
It should be some
like-
good stories.
You're right. You're right.
I mean, best advice received doesn't mean necessarily best advice taken.
Correct.
So, Blue, I'm gonna have you go first, then Paige, then I will close it out this week. So, what's your number 3, Blue?
my number 3 was from from like as long as I can remember. I've always had it kind of beaten into me to do the right thing, not the easy thing. And so that's kind of been always one of my guiding things is to, even though it's not the easiest thing to do, still do the right thing. And that's, whether that's in business, whether that's in school or, just in your personal life. That was always something that that was like one of the golden rules around our house growing up.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes hard to do. For sure.
Oh yeah, but I mean that's the whole point too, is that it's not. It's like always take the high road type thing. It's not. It's not going to be the easy thing. It's not going to be the easy way, but that doesn't mean that you don't do it. So I don't know. It's just something that I've always kind of taken to heart.
Nice. Starting strong and making my number 3 get to it to seem slightly less heavy. Paige, what's your number 3?
Don't go to bed angry.
Ah, yeah. That's hard to do too.
It is really hard to do because, like, growing up, I just had some really bad situations between family, school, whatever. So, I don't even remember where I heard this one from. I probably read it in a book somewhere. But you wake up feeling better if you resolve the issues before you go to bed. So I've always kind of taken that to heart, especially we actually just got married in June. So I try not to go to bed too angry at him most nights.
It kind of leads me into number 3 too, just being aware, making sure that you're taking the steps that you need to take to stay strong. My number 3 is listen first, pause, then respond. And the pause is actually the most important. It's the it's so easy to react immediately after you hear somebody.
Mhm.
So it kind of tags in with yours a little bit as well. But yeah, that one is advice that I got from a book. Not necessarily anybody in particular, but just a book randomly in college. I thought it was super important to be able to take that moment, breathe, try not to react emotionally,
Yep.
and try to view it from the outside perspective. But up to you, number 2, Blue.
This was so I grew up with my family had a fairly successful like small business, and so growing up we were always being in the office was kind of just part of our life. Like we were just always around there. And another one of the ones that one of the big rules that not just our parents but like all the business owners that we interacted with and everything they always harped on was basically don't let success go to your head. Always work as if you're just starting out. Always do your best, give it your best no matter what. Never rest on your laurels. And from a professional standpoint, it's hard to do that, but I've seen both sides to that, and it's definitely one of the best pieces of advice I've ever been given, especially for a professional setting, is to just never just don't half-ass something. Like always give it 100% if you can, or give it the best that you can give at that time, and never just let the previous success carry you.
Definitely good advice. Paige, what about your number 2?
Don't change yourself to please others. Change yourself to please you.
That one's hard. I think out of all of them
Yes.
so
Yep.
far, that one
Yep.
is the hardest one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my dad always like harped on me like you need to do you and not worry about the other people.
Yeah,
Like
that's actually one of my my other runs is it's hard, especially like having a child now. It's weird seeing it on the opposite side of the fence. Like it was one thing growing up and being told that, and you're like yeah, and but you don't understand, and now it's like oh Lord. Like
yeah.
no, you are like with our little guy, he's so unique, he's so awesome the way he is, and
they
going
have
into
such big personalities.
they have such big personalities, and it's like, but then they go into social situations and you're like no don't do, like either bad or good, like whatever, but it's like there's a part of them that I'm like I don't want that to change. That curiosity or that eagerness to learn or something like that. I don't want to lose that.
Or my daughter's biggest thing is she is so socially inclined that she will go up to anyone and say her full name and be like, hey, I'm Alyssa. And middle last name insert. And I'm like,
here's my social security number and my birthday.
Doing that. I'm like, I'm glad you want to interact with people, but please, you're stressing me out.
Ours
good.
Ours did that. Oh,
it's nice though that she's outgoing enough to go and talk to somebody. That I
Oh, yeah, for
understand
sure.
the worrisome aspect, but that is also a skill that's kind of few and far between with kiddos these days.
Right. Some of them are so
open.
shy, and I see that all the time in the salon chair. Is they don't even want to talk to me. They just like sit there terrified. I'm like, I'm okay. Like you can talk. We can have a conversation. Let's talk about Paw Patrol. Let's talk about Sophia the First. Like, I want you to be comfortable.
Yeah. The gift of the gab is something that doesn't come naturally to a lot of people anymore.
That's for sure.
So my number 2 is actually a piece of Crucible advice for gaming, and it's from Lux Regalia. And I don't know if he's actually in chat this evening or not, but it's something that he taught me probably about a year or so ago because I never ever really wanted to go into comp. I was terrified of getting into comp because it's so sweaty. And the
Yep.
piece of advice he gave me was when you're playing comp, if you lose 2 matches in a row, go into like a quick play playlist, cool down, reset, kind of get back into the flow with things before you decide to go back into the comp playlist. Because if you're playing angry, you're making poor decisions just based off of like that emotional response instead of trying to think logically. And so getting into a situation that is a little less tense or a little less, I guess,
More relaxed.
yeah, I want to say a little less rewarding in some ways, but I guess a little less sweaty. Although quick play has been super sweaty lately.
Oh my god, it's been awful.
Okay,
Pins.
maybe.
Pins. Yeah, if you're getting into a too sweaty of a match, I'm gonna have to agree with Pins on this one.
What does Pins say?
You just shut down Destiny 2 completely. You turn on Halo 5 and you go into some good, relaxing Super Fiesta. And you just
Super Fiesta ever been relaxing?
Yes, it's always relaxing and it's always
No.
hilarious and it's just easy. It's it just makes you feel good about yourself.
I'd rather shove toothpicks in my eyes. I'm sorry for the Halo fans. That is not my game mode.
Blue, what does this gun do? I don't know. Just pull the trigger.
I have actually, and you can put me on the crucifix now. I've never played Halo.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No crucifix needed. It's a good game.
I never had an Xbox growing up.
Yeah.
I was PlayStation, Spyro, Crash Bandicoot,
Nice.
all that good stuff.
Do you have an
That's
Xbox
all
now?
right.
Nope.
Oh, okay, well, then you're still forgiven.
We have 2 PlayStations and a 3 TV setup in our living room right now.
Well, what I hear is that you have 2 wrongs and you still have the chance to make one decision to the right. So
You know what? PlayStation isn't that
it's a
bad.
no, it's not.
possibility.
Well, and the thing is like that's the other thing is as the consoles have kind of evolved these last couple generations, it's honestly gotten to a point where the difference is the
identical.
controller. The difference is the
Mhm.
controller. Like
Right.
I'll pick up a PlayStation controller. And I'm like, I have no idea what to do with this because I'm so used to the Xbox because it's off
Staggered
center.
thumbstick.
It's a staggered
Yeah.
thumbstick, and the controller is also shaped distinctly differently as well. But like that staggered thumbstick, you don't realize. I mean, I don't even realize how much I actually prefer that. But then, like when we were at Guardian Con, they were like, "Here's a PlayStation." I was like, "Oh no."
I was
wasn't
so
that
happy
bad.
we weren't playing on
I was
Xboxes. Can I
I'm
say
like,
that?
I'm like, oh no.
I was super happy it wasn't mouse and keyboard.
Oh, yeah,
right.
I tried.
That would've been terrifying.
I tried to switch over to mouse and keyboard for Destiny 2 with the whole cross save thing, and I'm not gonna lie, I played for like 2 minutes, and I was like, nope.
I'd be a complete potato.
I
still
pretty
plug
much
in my
was.
controller.
I
I'd be
pretty much
worse in
was.
Crucible than I am now.
Nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Blue, what do you think about the new mini fridge?
I'm gonna censor myself, but I am so fucking excited for it.
Really, you're excited
Yeah.
for the new mini
Here's
fridge?
the thing. This is Pins. So Pins and I were talking about this actually. Here's the thing. I don't buy consoles for aesthetics. I can't even see my console, so I could care less what it looks like. The thing is if you read the specs on that thing, it's a beast. And the reason why it's the shape that it is because it has a whole new layer of dedicated graphics and hardware in it that in the current iteration of consoles, there's just simply not the space for it. And if you look at like the way that they have revolutionized the energy components of it, which speaking of which, if you're not understanding what I'm talking about, go look at the specs of the Xbox One. The guy at Microsoft who redesigned the way that electricity is generated and is passed into the Xbox One actually reinvented the distribution process of electricity within the console. The thing that they designed for the Xbox One was patented and named after that technician, because
Nice.
they completely reinvented the whole thing. They
were
then
going to have to, because at
yeah,
this point,
it can't
there's
keep
not
up.
much.
It can't keep
right.
up.
There's not much difference between a PC and a con. I mean, there is between like high-end PCs, but there's so much power within the
Right.
consoles.
Yeah, and I
now
mean,
at this point.
and the thing, and then also the nice thing is like the other really cool thing about the Xbox. I think it was the Xbox One X. I don't think it was in the original Xbox One, but they actually switched at some point on the consoles. They switched to a hydro cooling, but it's not full hydro. It's actually like a steam cool. It's a really kind of, I can't remember off the top of my head, so I apologize for that. But it was really cool because he was like, basically you get the same benefits of like a super efficient hydro cooling processor, like component setup, but it takes like a fourth the space. Like it's and so like with the Xbox process, and I know that PlayStation has similar developments. I don't have PlayStation, so I don't know the specs in and out like I do. With Xbox, I've always played on an Xbox, and like, I mean, I'll make fun digs at PlayStation, but honestly, at the point, I'm at the point where it's like, look, if I don't know. I don't care.
It's the label on the outside of the plastic.
It's getting to the point. Yeah, it has gotten to the point where that is exactly the truth. In my mind, like the difference between the two consoles, in my opinion, are really just the exclusive titles, which even that line, as we get more and more kind of into the weeds, we're getting more and more blurred there as well.
Well, even Destiny dropped exclusives for.
Oh yeah, well, and I mean that was a huge thing too. I mean, I have my own personal opinions about the business decision on that, but it was huge too, because I think they're just getting on the bandwagon with everything else. I mean, Microsoft has made huge strides with their studios. Like Ninja Theory. I saw the Hellblade 2 trailer. Oh my gosh, it looks amazing. And that entire trailer. So a cool little thing about that was that entire trailer, they said, was actually filmed with the in-console graphics setup on the Xbox Series X. So that entire trailer was actually done through the console. It was not done on a computer outside and then revented. So I mean, and I don't know. Like, I mean, it's, to a lot of people, it comes down to pricing. The thing to remember with the Xbox and with the PlayStation, what is it, 5, I think, is we're getting to a point where I'm gonna not be surprised to start seeing modular consoles, which by what I mean is, like, you're gonna get a console that instead of buying a console every 5 years, you're just gonna buy components to that console and upgrade it.
Sure.
I'm actually kind of surprised that this wasn't the generation that they made that jump. I was kind of half expecting that to be so. But I mean, I don't know. I know I get grief for it, but I buy consoles because I don't want to keep up with a gaming computer. You know, so I'm willing to drop a nicer dollar once, and then have it. I like having it where I can turn it on and I know I can play the game. I'm just lazy that way. And I don't have the time to keep up with PCs anymore. Like when I was in college and I had time to dedicate to, keeping up with the latest specs and keeping up with all that. Sure, I liked gaming computers, but then, once I had to go out into the real world,
being an adult.
Yeah, be an adult. And then, especially now being married, having a kid, all that stuff. I just don't have time to keep up with it. And I'm willing to pay. And not only am I willing to, but I thankfully, luckily have the means to be able to pay for the ease of the console. So, but no, as to answer your question, no, I'm actually, I saw the aesthetics of it because I was watching. Oh yeah. I saw the aesthetics of it, and I remember telling Pins, I was like, well, my response to the aesthetics, like, initially is like,
I like it better than the towers, like the way that they've always had the Xboxes displayed, where it's just like this skyscraper.
Yeah, I mean, like,
I
I don't
feel
know.
like I'm gonna
Like,
break this one. This one
that's
is a
true.
lot
Like Xbox.
hardier.
Well, the Xbox One, actually, I like over the Xbox 360 for that exact reason. When I got the Xbox One, and I have like one of the original Xbox Ones. I don't have like the S or the X or whatever. Like when I got it, I picked it up and I was like, oh, thank God. It's a console that I don't feel like it's going to like break in half. Because that was the thing with the 360 I think we have the 360S up in our living room right now for our DVD machine. I just feel like that thing's going to break. I constantly am afraid that thing's just going to like fall apart at some point. But yeah, and I mean, the other nice thing is they built it so it can be horizontal or vertical, so that you don't have to worry about that.
That's kind of nice for spacing because you don't always have the space for stuff.
Well, the thing you see on Reddit right now is all these entertainment centers that are like the low profile for like the VCR, so it's that horizontal,
right?
And they've created these modified blueprints essentially where the tower is sticking up through the top of the deal.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, and some of that, like, I don't have, like, where my console is set up for my gaming stuff, I don't have that worry because I just have shelves. I can just move the shelf, whatever. But upstairs in our den, where we do, that is kind of a concern, but it's also got mobile shelves, so I can just move the shelf if I need to. I don't.
Nice.
But
yeah.
But
you know
yes.
what? I think that's a good place to kind of wrap back into our number one good advice, even though there's no segue, but I'm going to
Yeah, we kind of
go for it.
Tangent.
You tangented off on Game Awards for me.
Hey, I'm good with it. So number one, Paige, what's your number one?
It's okay to fail.
Yes.
If you don't fail, you will never learn. And I remember junior year in our English class, we had this capstone project. And all throughout the year, we had to read these articles about like that 10,000th hour or that 10-year where you have to become, what do they call that? Where you're basically certified and you actually know what you're doing after you learn something 10 years in a row or something like that.
Oh, like a mastery plan? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like going through journeyman projects and stuff like that.
Right. And one of the TED Talks we had watched in our class was a TED Talk on failure. And I think people look down on failure and think, I shouldn't have failed at that, or gosh, they're going to really beat themselves up about it and stew on it. But we really need to look at failure as a point to learn and grow.
Yeah. You learn more from reflecting on a loss than you do from a win.
Right. Yeah, the high from the win is nice, but what did you actually learn from it?
Yeah, absolutely. Blue, what is your number one?
So it's not really counter to that one, but one of the things, like, again, I had said, my parents, and so like growing up, I was always I always was around like the business owners and the business founders and stuff, and it was surprising to me, and I feel really weird even saying this, but one of the things that they always told me, and this is like one of the most counterintuitive things in my head, because like, growing up, you're always like, oh, these people got to be geniuses. They have to know exactly what they're doing. They have, they're lucky that they have all this. And without fail, pretty much every single one of them told me that when it comes to business, a large majority of them have found that it's actually usually necessary to fake it until you make it. And I was like, wait, what?
Yep.
And I remember sitting there as a kid. I'm like, wait, so you're lying to people? And they're like, no. It's not lying. But like, it's I'm trying to remember how they phrased it. It was like, it's selectively showing people successes within the business, like this isn't just personal stuff. This is like professional. But like, like I remember one of the times I sat down with one of these guys and he was talking about like, someone was asking him, you know, we know that this quarter's been really rough, and you know, how's everything going with you guys? Because I know everyone else is struggling. He's like, oh, we're doing great. And I'm looking at him, I'm like, you just lied. Like I know you guys are in a rough spot. And I remember talking to him afterwards and being like, but that's not the truth. Like, he's like, in a certain way, yes, you're right. We are having problems, but we're still in business. He's like, we're still here. We're still doing stuff. So in perspective, we are doing great. And the other thing is, in business, sometimes a false show of confidence actually makes or breaks businesses. And so it's like this weird, like, you're not lying, but you're kind of not telling the whole truth. I don't know. It was really weird. And I just remember like sitting there, I'm like, huh, okay. I mean, to me, it was really counterintuitive, because these were guys who were like, you know, do the right thing, do the right thing, be moral about it, you know, take the high road and all this. And they're always like, you know, fake it until you make it with businesses. And it was like, I'm like, all right, man. But yeah, that's one of the advices that has like really stood out. I mean, for forever. I've always remembered that piece of advice, especially with regards to professional endeavors. A lot of times it's and chat's talking about that right now. It's like, man, it's a tough thing, but you got to sell it. Like, you know, that's part of being in the higher echelons of the business management's, you know, rafters, is like, you have to be able to sell that confidence in your product. And part of that is selling your business. And so that's ultimately what it is.
Yeah, I was told that after I graduated beauty school. You fake it till you make it. I'm like, how do you fake a haircut?
Oh, well, and I mean, it's like
it's not
that.
The skill. We're faking the confidence in your skill.
Yes, and that's exactly, I guess that's a really good clarification, because you still need the skills. Like, you still need to know what you're doing, but this is more about like the success rate, like the success of the overall, like behind, like the soft skills, not the hard skills. Like the hard skills, like the knowledge of how to do stuff, and like what I do is like reporting and database analysis and stuff like that. Like, you still have to understand what you're doing. But when you come into a meeting and you're like, okay, this is what's going on, you know, we're going to do this and this and this, and they're like, well, we don't know how to fix it. Even if we don't know how to fix it, we're like, we have to put the face on, like, well, we're going to figure it out. We're going to get this fixed. Like, even if you don't know how you're going to fix it, you have to approach it with the fact that it is a problem that you can overcome. It is going to get fixed.
Yep. And there's also the aspect of, as you're gaining, not only as you're gaining that skill, or like you may have graduated or like succeeded in whatever schooling, you still may not have all the skills that job requires. There's a lot of learning on the job. And so keeping the confidence that you can and will do the job and do it not necessarily exactly as the textbook or whatever, but as good as you can. That's important too. Because I'm selling shoes. I've never been a shoe person. And shoes there's so many different varieties of like shapes of feet and widths and thickness, and it's just interesting to know that one shoe may work for one type of person but not the other. And I can sit there and do lectures with the manager at the store all I want, but until I get out there and actually start doing it and basically trial and error my way through, but keeping a confident mind, as it's not going to start absorbing. So it's a lot of learning on the go.
Oh, for sure. I've learned 100 times more being at the salon than actually in school. Like, yeah, we learned the textbook stuff, but actually going out there doing it, seeing all the different hair types and stuff like that, it's totally different.
So my final one is not necessarily, it's a piece of advice, but it doesn't come across as a piece of advice to begin with. And it is, some people may come into your life for a moment, a reason, or a season. And I had a very interesting lady tell me this when I was just about out of college. And I was kind of dealing with the whole aspect of my family not necessarily being super close, and some of my family not being exactly super kind at that point in time. And it was just a reassuring kind of saying that, just if they come back, great, but your life, your determination of what you end up doing is not dictated by another person. And so you shouldn't get hung up if a person that you really, really want to be in your life decides to leave all of a sudden for their own purposes or own reasons. That it may just be their time, and they may have taught you something great while they were there, and it's time for them to move on, and that's okay. So,
For sure.
Jay, do you have some of those other also rans?
Yeah, I got a lot of them, but I'm gonna
Yeah, I
boil.
wondered.
I'm gonna boil it down. Like, I mean, like, I don't know. I'm gonna boil it down to a couple. One of them is keep a schedule and actually keep it. Hone the discipline that's needed to keep that. So make a schedule and keep it. I cannot stress how much that has helped me personally in both personal and professional, as well as school. Like, that has been one of the biggest things for me. The other one that I would say is learn how to let go of things that you can't control. So basically, and it's hard. It's freaking,
Oh my gosh,
it's
yes.
so hard. But hang on. Yeah, basically, like, I was always told as a kid, don't worry about what you can't control. Don't worry about them. Worry about what you can do. You know, that's, again, that whole thing, do the right thing, not the easy thing. But, you know, and like having a 6-year-old too, it's starting to come up with him. It's, you know, well, they get to do this. And I'm like, no, it's like, I'm not worried about them. You shouldn't be worried about them. Let's worry about you, and let's make sure that we're making good decisions. And that's a hard lesson. It's a hard lesson for a kid. It's a hard lesson for an adult.
Oh,
like,
for
it's,
sure.
It's very, very thought. Yeah, chat also wants me to put don't push every button. But that's a lie. That's a lie.
You gotta push buttons every once in a while.
Especially when they're big and red and they say don't push.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, like, basically don't just let it go. Like, and it's hard for me to even say that, because I that's one of my biggest struggles. You know, like, if you have coworkers who are not lifting their share, you know, or something like that, do what you can do. And I mean, the thing is like, at the end of it, it reminds me of like this old quote that we always got told is, you know, those who mind don't matter, but those who matter mind. Like, they know, they recognize, the people who you need to worry about are recognizing what's going on. It might not seem like it. It might always, and sometimes that might not be the case, but in the end, it tends to go, what goes around tends to come back around. It really does just tend to do that. But yeah, those are my two big also rants.
So don't be afraid to take time for you is one of my biggest ones. It's one of the things that my mother made sure to impress upon me, which is kind of weird because my mother, if anybody knows much about my mother, it's more of, my mom is a kind of an interesting character in not only my life, just in general. She's a very sweet lady, but she makes some very interesting decisions on a regular basis, and it's like, okay, you do you. But one of the things she did do very well was make sure that when I was getting overwhelmed, because I am the kind of person, and I was the kind of kid that got involved in everything in school. I did multiple types of clubs, I did sports, and I was in a small school, so it was a lot easier to do than some areas of the country, but I would overwhelm myself pretty often.
Spread yourself too thin.
And so I had to learn how to when I start to feel myself get to that point, step away. And it's still something I have to work on now. It's part of the reason that FFC took a little bit of a break like we did, because I wanted to make sure that both Jay and I weren't just burning out completely, because we both do this a little bit. Don't we, Jay?
Just a little
yes. Yes. Keeping a schedule is not always a good thing, actually. as Green has made me figure out.
It's keeping the promises you make yourself.
Oh, for sure. So I have a fun one, just completely out there one. I was thinking about this at work today.
Okay.
And this little girl was talking to one of our other stylists. I think she was probably 7 or 8. And she goes, "Did you know if you don't work out every day, you're going to die?"
That's adorable.
I'm waiting. Hang on. I want to know what the response was, because I have my response, but I'm curious what the response to that would have been.
So, the stylist she was talking to was one of our stylists who's a little heavier set, and she has some heart issues. And her face just like was pure shock, and I was in the middle of applying a color, and I lost it. The other stylist looked at me like my head, like I grew a second head. And I looked at her and I'm like, "Who told you that?" And she goes, "My gym teacher."
Uh-huh.
I'm like, "Of course." But that's not true, honey. And she goes, "But the teacher said so." Like deadpanned. Teacher said so.
That's an instance where I imagine something got taken out of context.
Yeah, that's when you turn back around and you say, "And guess what? If you don't work out every day, you're going to die too." Like, it's here's a bubble. Here's a bubble that it's like I looked down at my hand, I have a pen, and there's a bubble, and I'm like, "Oh, I can just
you can just pop the bubble." Her dad looked at her in like utter like disappointment.
Oh no.
He like looked back from the reception area and just kind of shook his head and like sat back in his chair.
That's when I'm like, I oh my gosh, that's awesome.
I'm like, if my kid says that to anybody, I hope they don't know that I game probably 20 plus hours a week.
Right? I have like a pedometer on my phone. And days that I am homesick or like just home and gaming, it's a real sad day.
It's
as far as my pedometer
the 20
goes.
feet from the couch to the Keurig to the fridge and back.
Yeah, but see, if you make that lap, you make a lap a couple times, you're good to go. Right? That's like they were talking. They're talking about one of the
out of the 10,000 we need to do daily.
One of the things that I guess like they're trying to push over in the EU is instead of calories, they're trying to say, okay, it would take you this long of exercise to wear off. And it's like, I'm like, nope. I already know that I'm bad. I don't need your help. Like, I don't need your help
sure.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my goodness.
That makes me happy.
Any other also rans? Paige, did you have any other extra ones?
I don't have any extra ones. That one just came to mind because
nice.
Perfect, because I was thinking about it while I was at work, and then that happened, and I was like, I have to tell them that.
I can definitely say if you don't use it, you'll lose it. As far as like flexibility or athleticism or even muscle memory for the game. Like if I'm gone from the game for a while, you will I feel like I've lost all finesse in the thumb control and with Crucible and everything. So if you don't use it, you're going to lose it. Stretching, stuff like that. Athletics, obviously. It's just...
Pins!
What did Penn say? Ashes to ashes, dust to dust. If you don't use it, it will begin to rust. That is amazing. Is that why my knees are squeaky? I don't even know where to go from here.
I'm just like, there's a lot of responses. None of them are good to that statement.
That's okay.
That was good. That was good.
Oh my goodness. All right. I think we should wrap up this top 3. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, Dragon, for joining us. Paige, I appreciate you for hopping in on this one. Can't wait to see what we got for the intro session. For those of you who are in the future and listening to this in podcast form, I'm sure it was great. So, until next time, remember,
Hashtag.
everybody loves
Pew
a list.
pew. Choo choo.
And moving on to the real thing.
Thank you, Marcus.
Yay! Bits.
TAD. Hey,
Bits.
Lux, you literally missed one of your pieces of advice made my list, and you literally came in right after I was done.
I gotta make another cup of coffee. Give me like 2 minutes.
You're good. Lux! Okay. So, thank you for the clarification that the Undying Mind is dead in the show notes. Wow. Thank you.
So
That's
the only reason that I did that was because when I signed in the other day for the first time, I went over to Ikora or whatever, and she's like, "We're gonna have to get with the Cryptarchs to rename it." I was like,
Lux, the piece of advice was the leave
We
the
still
comp
love you, Mikey.
match and go into quick play if you lose 2 in a row. Which, by the way, I'm already at 1800.
I'm not gonna lie. Every single time I see TKD, all I can think of is stormtroopers.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's actually TK, but still.
As you do.
Very.
Chinchilla, if you don't like going into comp, go into the solo playlist where no one's teamed up. It's much easier. What if Viru? Oh no. Oh no. Wow.
So I'm literally making my coffee, and
Mhm.
all I hear is Blue just cackling through my headset.
Yeah, because Viru posted, oh, by the way, who's
It's gonna be
excited
a ride
for
to the
dawning
heavens.
where we can finally ride on Beard?
I saw that tweet and I just like silently died in the break room because if I laugh, they all look at me like I'm stupid.
Oh.
Oh goodness.
I
didn't. Beard. Did Beard tweet something out about it? I didn't even see.
Oh no. I'll be honest, when I first saw it, the first thing that came to mind was his Dark Materials. Because they actually like have a good portrayal of the armored bears.
Ah, gotcha.
Listen, the last episode of The Mandalorian is freaking awesome.
I haven't seen this week's.
I
It's
haven't
so
seen it
good.
at all.
It's so good, Green.
I'm sure the last couple have been really good. Like
Which one was the last one you saw?
The last one I saw was the comedian who was taking care of the
Yeah.
baby.
You left this all by itself.
Yeah.
See, Mikey, you give good advice. We need to set up Crispo School for the clan again.
I'm gonna go figure out Dawnblade again.
Yeah, Lux, it's actually not too bad. Wicked's actually been enjoying it. When for Wicked to say he's enjoying the extra floof is
The extra
something.
floof.
I mean, that's what it is. They get more airtime now.
Ugh.
Oh my
Fucking
god.
Dawnblade.
Oh, they rolled out the official Baby Yoda toys? Nice.
Nice. Is there another name
It's
for
so-
it besides Baby Yoda?
No, that's what everyone's calling it. The child is actually what
We
it's called.
actually, so we had an argument in our party chat the other day about Baby Yoda, and I think it had to do with like just different species. and someone said, "Oh, he's like 50 years old. He's an old man." And
No, he's 50 years old, but he's a child.
But he's a baby compared to the others.
Just
people in his
developmentally
species.
slow compared
Yeah,
to
because I mean,
how fast
they
we
mentioned
grow.
that in the first episode. They're like different species age differently.
Yup. It's just like someone brought up, it's just like cats. You wouldn't call a 7-year-old cat a baby.
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
Oh my gosh, they have one where he's in the swaddling. That's fucking
Did you
adorable.
see the meme for the Baby Yoda? If Baby Yoda goes out and drinks too much, and it's a gremlin is the second picture.
Oh God.
No, but it makes perfect sense.
My child. Watch Gremlins and then do everything that makes a gremlin evil and mean. That's my child.
Oh
It's
no!
awful.
I mean, they're
She
fairly
needs to
young.
be like on
still.
super regulated schedule, otherwise she turns into like a little demon child.
They have
That's a
one
lot of
with the
kiddos.
what? That is awesome.
They have one with what?
Hang on, I'm gonna send it to you.
Let's see here.
Oh, by the way, Marcus mentioned it that he can hear me vaping. So if it bugs anybody, just let me know and I can totally stop.
Oh, I don't hardly notice it, so
Okay.
don't worry about it. Blue, whenever you are ready.
I'm sorry, I'm like
You're
going.
He's
lost
looking
on
at
the-
Yoda
Yeah.
memes.
Oh my
He's lost.
god!
It's
No,
fine.
I found the bounty collection for the child toys for Baby Yoda. Oh my gosh, they have one with the ball. That is hilarious.
Did you see that they had the 501 come in for some of the stormtrooper?
I was wondering if the 501 was involved with that.
Yeah, they didn't have enough costumes, so they literally brought in a fairly local 501 group.
Nice. That's good. I
to
like
do
that.
it.
I like that. And the 501 is you're guaranteed to have a good quality.
Right. Right.
Oh my gosh, that's so adorable.
Let's see here.
I was trying. Oh, did you guys see the Yoda meme about the girlfriend making an account to play video games with him?
Mm-mm.
No.
Okay, I'll share it in the Discord chat. Hold on. One of my clanmates sent that to me, and it was pretty funny.
TK. No apologies. No apologies needed.
TKD is Marcus, and he is really good at pushing buttons.
But if you don't push the buttons,
That's
how do you
so
not
funny.
know?
Yeah.
Oh no. Oh
It's
my.
so true.
Yeah, one of my clanmates sent me that, and I'm like, that is so true. Mikey, it's the one you sent me.
Yeah. That's a thing. That's a thing. Maybe we should do a Mandalorian chat.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
I mean, haven't you guys done Star Wars chats in the past?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But not specifically Mandalorian. And
Right.
Cannot wait until next week.
Cole went crazy. Like I was having to ask her questions about it. They did a really good job of like keeping to the book, close to the culture of the book.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I've been very pleased with it.
See, if there's a book, I'd be so down to read it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I will read a book before I even like think about watching a TV show. Shut up, Marcus.
Season 4 came out today, I believe, yeah. For The Expanse. I need to get caught up on that one.
So the Mandalorian book, what was the name of the writer? It was a female writer.
In current EU?
Yeah, well, I mean, it would technically be part of Legends, wouldn't it?
Yeah, because in Legends, there's a couple different ones.
Because there's the Mandalorian. Let's see here,
Like there's like the
KW
Bounty
Jeter.
Hunter. I mean, there's stories about like the Boba Fett and like the bounty hunters that are there, which is like the bounty hunter tales from Jabba the Hutt's palace, the bounty hunter, the Mandalorian armor, and all that. But that's all in Legends. I'm not sure if they have one. Let me see.
I'm asking Karen Travis.
Oh, yeah. Mixed feelings on her, but yes, she does. She is a good writer.
Okay.
She's apparently the one who helped flesh out a lot of the culture for him.
Nice.
Yeah, that's actually not a huge surprise. Just yeah. Don't get pins started on Karen Travis.
Thank you, Cole.
There it goes.
Oh no.
Oh boy, we're about to have a pens and
Oh,
Did she have a hand in any of the Halo series?
Kilo
Is that
5,
why?
the Kilo 5
Oh,
trilogy.
gotcha.
Yeah, she
Gotcha.
is notoriously anti-Spartan.
I see.
Which is really funny, actually, because she's so anti-Spartan, but then she's like, apparently she's really involved with Mandalorians and the Commandos.
But the
Star Wars.
Mandalorians aren't modified per se.
That's true. No, and that's actually probably the kicker is right there.
Yeah.
Yeah. She just her writing style with the Kilo 5 trilogy was very harsh.
Challenging.
It wasn't like she just was very harsh because she made decisions in that trilogy that were, like I said, they're anti-Spartan. Like she just made them not look good. Which I don't know how much is actually on her and how much was on the guidance of whoever was behind, the overall narrative. I'm not sure how the narrative team works on those. Oh, yeah, then there was that too. Parangosky was yeah. Well, we won't bring up Parangosky because so anyways, introduction time.
Yes. Intro episode.
All right, let me get this back up started, and there we go. Oh yes, thank you for that reminder.
Mm-hmm. Background change.
Right, new banner should be up there. Perfect. Okay. Welcome to Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on December 13th, 2019, over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat. As always, I want to give a big shout out to our live chat here with us tonight. Thank you so much for joining us once again. This week's episodes are going to be focused around exploring the lore book aspect. This particular episode will serve as what we have come to call the intro session of the week's exploration. And before we go any further, however, let's run through a quick introduction of who all we have with us on the show. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86.
And this is Saint 14 Savior, green-eyed music lover.
And last but definitely...
We're all his savior. It's fine.
And last but definitely not least, in the hot seat as guest co-host, we have our good friend Paige. Paige, how are you doing?
I am doing great. I am all caffeined out, so we are going to be perfectly fine throughout this whole thing.
Sweet.
Nice. So, usual introductory question next for you. Where can we find you out on the internet?
So, Twitter, Dragonfly with an I, PH, no underscore, no period, because I suck sometimes. PSN, Ren of Dragons. And then I actually have a blog on Blogger called Notes of the Dragon Keeper.
Ooh. What does that stem from?
So, I like to write, always have. So I found a writing prompt book, and it started out just doing shorts with them based on those writing prompts. Then I found one that I really liked, and I wanted to keep the story going. So I've been posting about every other week a new kind of like chapter or episode of that story.
Nice.
So
Nice.
That's
so
cool.
One of my
Thank you.
questions was like normally how did you get into lore, but I'm going to kind of tag team it a little bit. Did the getting involved with writing directly influence getting involved with lore, or was it the other way around?
Ooh, okay. So I need to start this by saying I was an awful online player when I first started Destiny.
Mm-hmm.
I started at launch. I did not play any PvP or with anybody else for the first year of Destiny.
That's
Dang.
acceptable.
And then
That's acceptable. That's the situation that I've gotten into.
I didn't need, well, okay, I definitely needed, but I didn't know raids were a thing. I never got into Crucible. And then Taken King launched and we got the King's Fall quest line
Mm-hmm.
where you actually had to do it. And I actually found TKD, who took me in at like 290 light into heroic King's Fall, told me to sit in a corner and just shoot. And so that kind of got me into the lore with the whole aspect of raiding.
Mm-hmm.
And I would definitely say my writing pushed me to dig deeper.
Nice.
Because I'm a why person. Why is everything happening?
Oh, we are all white people here.
So real quick. I have
Mhm.
one question pertaining to your King's Fall inauguration run.
Oh gosh.
Did you get the boop wall?
Did you get to start the boop wall?
So, oh gosh,
There's only one acceptable answer, and if it's not that answer,
I
I'm gonna.
I did
Okay,
because
okay.
I jumped down and immediately got launched. But let me
Nice.
say, I did not have bones of AO.
Oh yeah,
Oh,
neither did I.
no.
Neither did I. I've never had
Marcus,
those.
how long did it take us to do ships? I think it was like a good hour or two because I am awful at platforming.
God.
Did
You're
you
like,
switch to
that's like
Arcstrider at
Bell.
least?
Blade Dancer.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Really?
At least
Yes.
it helps. It had the best
Mhm.
jump in all
It
three
had
classes.
the
Oh yeah, okay, because you can do the hold,
higher
the hold.
jump.
Yeah.
It had the 2-tap and then it like catapults you almost.
Yeah, that's how we always did Crota runs.
Yeah, that was rough. I cannot believe those boys stuck with me for as long as they did.
I was about to say,
So
like the
here's-
ships part. As soon as I got a rhythm going with it, like as soon as I figured out the rhythm on it, it was pretty.
Fragment.
Right.
Here's
Well,
the
but
thing,
you're
it just
you're
pulled
talking,
me through.
yeah, you're talking to someone also who I never used the bones. Like everyone's like, oh, it gives you an extra jump. I'm like, yeah, but it doesn't actually give you extra height.
Right.
It just
gave
gives
you more
direction.
control.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
I remember
I'm not good at Mario.
we had
Marcus.
to drag Belle through that. That's the most colorful language I've heard come out of her in a long time.
Mhm.
The words coming out of my mouth are not for anybody under the age of 8.
Listen, Pins. Pins is giving me grief. Listen, my directions were completely logical, okay? You just didn't make those jumps right.
I want to take Blue through Outbreak Prime.
Oh my god, no.
Is that the
We
one that you
have
have to
a-
jump on the outside of the wall?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's awful. It's miserable. It sucks.
I'm not. Here's the thing: here's the thing. If you want
are the worst part.
if you want entertainment on a platformer, no offense, but you need to take Pins. Like Pins.
Oh,
Okay.
I did.
Did you? Oh, nice.
Both Dwyer and I carried him through.
Oh,
And
bless your
yeah,
souls.
he was cursing a bit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Through it.
The one time that we went through, what's the Dreaming City one? That was when Potato dragged us through.
Wish?
Yeah, Last Wish. No, Last Wish.
Oh, was it when you were in the throne world jumping?
Yeah, well,
the
yeah.
beams?
Right before Golgoroth wannabe.
Yep.
Like, oh, Pins.
Yep.
All of us accidentally went to the next stage, and Pins got stuck in the jumping part, and he couldn't even wipe and get dragged forward. It was
no.
Even
you have to like completely leave. And
Potato was
come
like,
back.
"What did we do?"
Poor Pins.
Oh, he was so pissed.
Yeah.
I love
Me
you,
and
Pins.
platforming don't get along. still don't. The other day we were doing the first couple missions with the obelisk on Tangled Shore, and Marcus and I were in a party together. I literally walked off the edge in that tiny little 5-foot section between the obelisk and the shore.
When you can find the one tiny hole in the entire landmass that is there. Yeah,
Every time.
I know that feeling.
Every time.
I may have done that as well. So, what is your favorite lore story for Destiny in general? Like, what would be your overall favorite story for Destiny?
That's a hard one. Probably No Time to Explain, like, not necessarily that specific, but like the Ishtar Collective, the whole like Vex Mind situations.
Nice.
Because I'm a Y person and we don't get a lot of Ys, so I want to keep digging for the Ys.
So this one probably drove you a little bit crazy?
Oh my god. When I read Aspect, I think I read it 3 times in the same night. Because my brain was like trying to process. So yeah, it drove me a little bit crazy.
Yeah. I mean, I think anything having to do with the time stream, the Vex stream, Vex, whatever prison, what we're calling it now, it's make your head hurt a little bit.
Oh, for sure.
Last question, and not the least, what is your primary class that you play?
So D1 Blade Dancer, Hunter Blade Dancer.
Mm-hmm.
D2, it started off as Gunslinger.
Okay.
But I've really fallen in love with Arc Strider, especially hitting projectiles back at people. It is the most satisfying you can possibly do in a Crucible match.
That is indeed when you have somebody who's shooting at you.
Or pops a hammer right in front of you or a
Oh
shield.
my goodness. Mm-hmm. And the look of confusion on their face as to why it hurt them instead of you.
Oh yeah, yep. Or grenade launchers are a good one too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, grenade launchers are great to pop back in their face.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you can. I think you can negate a Nova Bomb. I don't think you can bounce it.
You cannot reflect it back. I did learn the hard way. You cannot reflect Chaos Reach.
No, it's like a trace rifle.
Yeah, I tried. I failed.
Yeah, I haven't
epically
actually
failed though.
Spent too much time doing Arc Strider in any of Crucible, mainly because I play with Isakol and she uses Wave Splitter, and you cannot deflect Wave Splitter. It's a beam. Can't deflect any beams, and it's kind of pointless for me to try to run it whenever she's in a match with me. So I just stick to my Night Stalker.
Yeah, I never Night Stalker. I did it for raids, but I like to bop things on the head.
Yeah, I like my support class. All right, Blue. There's no community question this week.
Awesome. And I don't have any special announcements just yet. We're still working some stuff out with the website. Hopefully we'll have some announcements rolling out with that here shortly. But, as usual with enough of other chatter, I know everyone is looking forward to diving into the discussion. So let's just get the standard housekeeping notes out of the way and then we'll get right into it. So I guess real quick on this intro episode, where do we want to start? What would be the best place to start here?
I think a good place to start would be to kind of go over who Praedyth is, because Praedyth is one of the primary characters of the book Aspect, and if you're not a D1 lore person,
you have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, or if you didn't ever do No Time to Explain or any of those kind of things, you really wouldn't have any idea who he is. So I think starting there, if Dragon, if you'd like to take the reins on that and start in that area.
Let me get my tabs up here.
Yeah.
The amount of tabs on my browser is ridiculous.
Welcome to FFC, where we break Google Chrome over and over again.
Yep, basically. I haven't broken my laptop yet, though, so we're doing good.
Well, that's good.
So, Do you want me to start out just reading the Praedyth, like, kind of summary on Ishtar?
Sure. You can read Purple's summary. Purple does a really good job getting out of at least the meaty details in there.
Oh, for sure. So, a member of the original fire team to enter the vault of glass. He became lost in time, unable to return. When the Taken entered the vault, the Vex allowed some of his signals to get through, which caused the Vanguard to send a Guardian into the vault to attempt a rescue. Though Praedyth himself was dead, his ghost was recovered and returned to the future war vault. Prior to this occurrence, there were only scattered references to his existence, some of which were found in the Ishtar Collective's vault.
So interesting point of order with that entry of Purple's. There might be some clarification needed with that in particular because of aspect, because of the line where Purple says the Vex allowed him to send messages through at certain points. It's not necessarily that they allowed him, that more so the things aligned more so, like the veil became thin between the Vex and whatnot, the pulses we read about in aspect. So
Right.
that may be something.
I think the way I looked at it was that I'm trying to think of a good. Have you guys watched is it DC's Legends where
Mm-mm.
when they're in their time ship, they're like in a stream, and basically at certain points of discord, it's really easy to accidentally slip into a different timeline almost.
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of how I pictured it in my head, is those signals were able to get through thin or weak points in in the garden or where he was technically kept.
Right. He has his radio signal now that his little radio that he's built. Interesting. Beyond that, Praedyth was part of the same fire team as some other guardians, in particular one that also makes a semi sort of appearance within this book, or at least we get a reference that calls back to a former card with him, Pujari. So Pujari was Pujari? Wait, am I mixing Pujari and
you're thinking
Praedyth?
Pahanin.
Pahanin, that's who I was thinking
Yeah,
of.
Pujari. Well, okay, there's a theory that Pujari was involved, but there's no. Yeah, no. Pujari is the one that had the vision way back in D1 on Shores of Time.
Right, the one with the thorn in his hand.
Yes,
which is the
wound.
Yep.
The wound to his left hand. Yeah.
Mhm. Which is the callback that we get in this book.
Yeah, there's actually two callbacks. There's the one to Pujari, and then there's one in Atalik also. That is the Vex in the Garden, which I have a theory on who that is too as well.
Interesting. So we have those two. What is the significance of the Black Garden? Do we actually have a real answer for this yet, or is it more so still just kind of like the proving grounds for the Vex, or are they there on accident, or can we even answer this at this point for new light people?
I don't think so. I mean, I didn't find it like solid to be like, oh yeah, this is the reason. So I don't want to speculate and cause confusion.
Mm-hmm. We do know that the Undying Mind has been in the Black Garden at least for a bit before we started pulling it from the different areas of time.
Right.
But beyond that, we had the Soul Divisive, which was there worshipping back in D1.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think if there's much else out there now for the Black Garden itself. Julian and Aldrin went there and they got the asphodelia flower plant from there and brought it back to Mara. Beyond that, I don't think we have anything that's conclusive. A lot of speculative stuff when it comes to the garden itself, whether or not it has anything to do with the book, the unveiling. There's theories out there whether or not it is the proving grounds initially, and I don't necessarily know if those either have that much weight to them, to be honest, as far as whether or not the Black Garden is the garden where the darkness, quote unquote, and the traveler, the winnower, essentially, the winnower and the gardener are. But beyond that, there's not a whole lot we learn, besides the Black Garden causes pretty much hallucinations for a few different people and just making a full settle of uneasiness for a lot of us. But, Blue, do you have anything about the Black Garden that you can think of that I'm leaving out?
Nothing really. There is the part with the Kintark 3 that we got in this most recent update. But that doesn't reveal so much. That doesn't reveal much about the garden itself as much as it is about the corruption and the potential influence of like divinity and what appears to be Ahamkara, possibly something in there. So that, I mean, that was an interesting thing, and the only reason it connects to the Black Garden is that it took place in the Black Garden, and that connects back into the Crypticons. But yeah, and I think Dino's talking about that right now. Yeah, the Crypticons actually assigned the Kintark 3 to that. So, but again, excuse me, again, that doesn't really reveal much about the garden itself. I think the only other thing that we would see maybe dealing with the garden, and you might have mentioned this and I might have just blanked over this, is the unveiling stuff. But even then, the question there is, which garden is that talking about? Is that talking about a garden or the illusion of a garden? You know, there's a lot of...
According to Scannable back on Nessus, there's multiple gardens, so...
Is it the garden?
Similar to there's multiple Undying Minds, you know.
Well, is it multiple gardens in the fact that there are more than one location that are considered Black Gardens, or is it timeline oriented, like the Undying Mind, where there's multiple timelines that
multiple
the
realities.
Undying Mind comes? Correct.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't think there's a whole lot of clarification on either. Well,
and that's the thing is that hopefully with the whole situation in Season of Dawn, actually I'm hoping we'll get a little bit more clarity on that, because depending on the model that we see within Season of Dawn, that actually should shed some light on the version of multiverses that they're operating within with Destiny, because that clarification will actually, in retrospect, impact our understanding of temporal malleability within the story. Because if they're operating on a model of singular reality or a prime reality, that's gonna have major implications down the road. Whereas if it's a true multiverse that's, you know, fragmenting constantly, that's also gonna have, I mean, it's different implications based there on temporal travel, which, I mean, and that ties into here too. We see that with I think Mirative is when it starts coming into play a little bit.
So the last grouping that I want to bring up before we go into like an advanced session is, who is the Ishtar Collective team? Who are the different, I guess, fragments that we're seeing in this book? Because we see Maya, we see Shem, we see Dwayne,
we see Chioma.
Chioma's the other one. So we see that group. Do we want to go into a quick story of their history with the Vex in particular, considering that it's still pretty interesting and important, considering that they're seeing the fragmentations of them in the book.
Right. So I guess for me, the one thing I had a hard time placing was going back to the grimoire from the Ishtar Collective group
Mm-hmm.
and seeing if this was happening before the end of that grimoire, after.
What do you mean?
Does that make sense? Okay, hold on.
Try that.
So hold on, I'm trying to find. Oh.
Is it between 4 and 5?
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah.
I think it's 5 when they're standing at the edge of the gate. No, it might be.
Like you're asking if this is happening concurrently with the Vex Academy, with them breaking free from the Warmind. I would say it's after, because with the whole thing within Mirative and Mirative and then Deontic and Aurelius, they're actually communicating within the same time frame as Praedyth, and that would not have coincided with that time frame because that was during the Golden Age, and this is during the City Age.
The other aspect is, even though a portion of them were able to, I believe, get out of the Vex network, a lot of them volunteered to go back in. So
that's the 227. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the 227. So they rescued all of them, or they rescued most of them, and then the 227 they volunteered to go back, and basically they basically did the equivalent of what Osiris does with his projections inside the Infinite Forest within the Vex network.
Right.
Which was really cool, actually, within, I think it's Mirative, when he starts picking up on them. If you notice, all the radio patterns all start with 227.
Yep.
227 dot, and then it's basically the spelunking team, which I love that they call themselves spelunkers. I thought that was so cool.
I found that kind of cool.
I don't even know what they would call themselves otherwise.
Well, no, I just love the fact that they're not referring to themselves as I just like the fact that
Recon
they're like
team.
Yeah,
member.
they're not. Yeah, we're just spelunking. We're spelunkers. I was like that's correct.
Okay.
There is a mention in Mirative to Pahanin too, with the squid constellation. I love that.
Yes, there is.
Squid guy. Which that was only ever in the flavor text, wasn't it? Like there wasn't anything in
Pahanin's obsession. He's a cephalomaniac. Yeah, he's obsessed with
the
squids.
Armor with squids on it.
Yeah, he's obsessed with squids.
Let's see.
I think I actually have the notes somewhere. Yep, love cephalopods.
I mean, I guess the only way in which this could be concurrent with the Vex Grimoire card, like the Ghost Fragment Grimoire cards, I think, is if we do a full dive into the theory that there is actually a possibility of penetrating time. Because again,
penetrating as in cutting through it,
like cutting through it, like if you're actually going to go down, like I think it's the Rosenberg Bridge theory of passing through points, then you could argue also that this would be the same thing. That being said, though, also we see that there has been time passed for the 227 teams, like because there's the issue with the Kiyama who lost Maya, and how they can recognize her voice because it's hoarser because she's spent eons screaming about it. I think that was in, hang on real quick. I think that was in Volative, which is the second to last card.
Yep.
That's where you get the update about, hang on, let me scroll over here. Volative, I think it's, you see all the different iterations of the same process. Like you like they all start the same, but then based on the different decisions, they all have different consequences. And I think it's 218 loses Dwayne. And then
Yeah, it goes through like what happened.
72, 41, 59, and 59 is the one that I think she like loses her mind. Or she doesn't lose her mind, but she like just like shuts down basically.
Becomes emotionally stuff.
And I think it's 72 is the one. Is 72 the one that has the hoarser voice? I want to say. Yeah, 72's Chioma sounds hoarser than the others because Praedyth calls it out because he doesn't know why. And then like in Uriel's, which is the end of it, there's 183 spelunking teams, but there's a variety of different numbers of different individuals, which was really kind of cool because it notes it notes a disparity, even though they're all the same thing. And it actually explains this, I think, earlier too. It explains that even though they're all kind of the same person, because of the choices that they made since they went into the network, they've all become different. And so there's an interesting little component there as well. Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's true. Like if you go down the Alchemist and Merchant's Gate, yeah, that's a fair point. Sorry, Veru is talking about. So there's a comment in Ghost Fragment Vex 4. Is it 4 or 5 that the Alchemist and Merchant's Gate's brought up?
Gosh.
It's one of those. But anyways, Maya makes a comment about how she's unsure if it's that the Alchemist timeline analogy was correct or not. The Alchemist and Merchant's Gate is a short story. Awesome short story. Please let me know if you haven't read it. I'll get you a copy of it. But it deals with time travel.
Haven't.
Okay, yeah, I can get you a copy of it. Same with the Kentark 3 stuff. I put that together as well. So I kind of put it in a parallel format. But like with the Alchemist and Merchant's Gate, it deals with the apparent paradox of time travel from an outsider perspective, as opposed to the non-paradoxical experience of that time travel from the person who's actually traveling the time.
Gotcha.
And so it deals with the problem of keeping time cohesive, but at the same time, the individual who is in the center of the experience that's being reviewed, it is cohesive for them, but it's still a kind of apparent break from predetermination. It's a really interesting component of it. So if you have a situation in a temporal rip or temporal tear like you had in the Alchemist and Merchant Gate situation, then this would be happening concurrently and separately at the same time, as it could be happening concurrently and at the same time as the Ghost Fragment Vex cards.
Gotcha.
But then again, that's why I go back to Season of the Dawn's really, I think, going to give us a lot of flavor on that. Is the question is, are we actually traveling through time, or are we traveling through realities? Because there's a vast difference between those two.
Sure.
I think, at least from the Praedyth's perspective, he calls out how Vex used time as a tool.
Yes. Yeah.
That we are still tethered to the
Love
concept
that
of
quote.
time.
I love that quote.
So I don't think there's an easy answer to say that we're traveling through time. I think we're going through instances of moments in time. The time still is flowing, that we cannot utilize it.
Yeah, we still view time as having a beginning and end. Whereas time, I think it's Atalik is the one that talks about this. He's in that says, yeah, I like that Ishtar apparently agrees with my theory on who wrote this. But it actually says that. It says, go ahead, use your metaphor as a line, a loop, a flat circle. Heard someone say time was like a water once. At least that was novel. The Vex, they're the closest to understanding it. They've got distance from it. If time's a river, then we're fish and they're diving birds. What's wet mean to a fish? What's it mean to an osprey who's never fooled by refraction of the water's surface? And then he goes back, you want time to be a staircase we keep climbing forever. But hey, even a guardian skips back a step or two now and then. Nothing's been simple on Earth since that big white cue ball rolled in from the next neighborhood over. And the story is they don't work too well as a nightlight anymore. Mm-hmm. And then that's when he kind of goes back to the concept of like, we are stuck, and this is true for humanity in general too. Like we're stuck on this idea that time is a line. Like time, there's a start and a finish to it. So when you talk about time travel, the immediate thought is I'm going to go from point C to point A. Mm-hmm. And then the theory there is that, that again, you have, it's an interesting because it ties into the name of this entry, atelic, because atelic is actually meaning something that doesn't have an end. And so whereas telic means that it has an end or it has a goal, atelic is the opposite of it. So if you go based off that, then the other thing is like there's a eternal being stuck in motion, and it's an eternal present, so that time is not as much a temporal line as a mode of existence. It's an all permeable thing that's amorphous, which is where you get like the Vex using it as a tool. Any moment that's ever happened, any moment that ever will happen, they can go back to it, play it again until they get it right. Mm-hmm. And that's the difference between the Vex and the Guardians, because the Guardians simulate an ending, and the Vex. That's where the conflict comes in, is because the Vex keep simulating endings that they win, and the Guardians keep tearing through it, and that's where they become a stalemate. Which then, you're agreeing, you had asked about the importance of the Black Garden. That's where they start talking about the importance of the Garden. And the Black Heart. Mind. Mm-hmm, and the Undying Mind and stuff like that.
So we even have instances of time being manipulated again with our mission with Saint 14 now.
Right.
Yep. The Red Legion is trying to go and change the outcome of the Red War by jumping into it, which is kind of mind-boggling that they're trying to alter all of that. But I mean
it also makes sense too.
If they're trying to use the Vex essentially to.
Are you talking about the sisters?
Yeah, the Scion sisters.
The Scion sisters, yeah, because that was in the web lore piece too. Mm-hmm. It's not that they just want to win the Red War. They also want to make it so that the victory of the Red War is one that is more malleable to the Scion plan.
Right, rather than
Gaul. Yeah.
The big rhino.
Mm-hmm. The big man with the little arms.
Big man with little arms and white armor.
And pretty armor.
Yes. So I
was trying to find the lore card where Rasputin is supposedly talking to the stranger about how she steps through time like a spider web.
Look for the word stepping. Dark Age 2. Nope, that's Jaren Ward. Let's see here. It's the idea of step. It's the word. But Rasputin talks to the stranger stepping through and popping out a different time. It's Ghost Fragment Rasputin 4.
Oh, I was one off.
How do you step forward? How do you step back? Do you step across? Is there world of worlds, a web, and you are spider upon it? Are you searching for that one thread you need? Is that thread named victory? how interesting that card ties into everything that's currently going on at the moment.
Right, and that's why, because we were talking about the stream and the osprey and the fish, and I think that card specifically in Destiny makes a little more sense now that we've seen how Osiris doesn't necessarily manipulate, but simulates what could happen.
I mean, he's running probabilities like the Vex
Yeah.
are, but he runs it at such a massive rate that although I don't, if it was between
Brain melting.
the Vex processing power and Rasputin's processing power, I'm certain that the Vex still have him beat.
for
Well,
sure.
yeah, they have world computers.
Yeah. But as far as, is there anything else as far as introducing the concepts? I know we didn't really get into the story because there's the arc of what the book is itself.
Mhm.
Do we want to touch that before we move to the advanced episode? Blue, how much of the advanced episode are we?
I was thinking that we'd probably go pretty deep into the cards on the advanced episode. I mean,
Okay.
not deep. The tough thing about this one, just, full disclosure, is that the story, the arc, air quotes, around this particular one is really loose. It's not really a, bop, 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 bop. It's a story about Praedyth talking with the spelunking teams from Ishtar and kind of his, like, how he got introduced to them. And then it's basically, okay, he meets them, he talks to them, and then they have a plan that they're going to try. But then at the same time, you have a couple
Other
different
perspectives.
other perspectives that I don't really know how they fit into the overall story still. Like, I don't know how they're related to Praedyth's whole thing. Like, and there's a lot of theories about that. That I've seen bounced around, and I don't really agree with any of them, but I still don't understand how this all gets woven together.
That's kind of why I wanted to use the intro episode to just kind of talk about some of these former characters. The one that we're missing that we haven't talked about yet that you reminded me was Tevis.
Oh.
I love Tevis.
Right, and for those who are new, Tevis was the Hunter Vanguard prior.
No, he was the trainer.
No, he was not. He was the
He was
trainer for the
he
Night,
was the
Night Stalker.
Yes.
he was the bitter old trainer that Cade basically foisted all his young hunters off onto. And Tevis was notorious for being a huge fan of the Void and also a huge antagonistic figure when it came to looking at the Traveler as benevolent. He did not like the Traveler.
So, fun fact about Tevis, we get the Void Bow when we do the mission back in D1 on Convergence in the Black Garden in the in the Vex area. So
our Void Bow is literally his light.
Correct. Or
Which
at least
is why
his former bow.
Well, right, but that's why also I have a feeling. That's why I really think Atelic is actually Tevis, because there's a mention in that entry where he says, "You took my light." Hang on, let me see if I can find it real quick. Yeah, he says.
I actually didn't think about that, and then I was reading that makes.
Yeah, he says, without it, I would. Yeah, he says, without it, I wouldn't be stuck in the Black Garden making bets with myself on which goblin's going to be the next to slip on a soggy leaf and fall off a cliff either. You took my light already. You better take my advice. Which I love it. So
yeah, it definitely fit with kind of his monologuing.
And the whole card is just like, it just screamed Tevis, like, as far as like the attitude that I was picking up on.
Well, and one of the things I pulled up was the Graviton forfeit helmet. He has a quote that says, "Doesn't matter how good you are, you stay out there too long, you're not coming back. Not the same way you left anyway."
Sorry, I'm just responding to Shaggy with the Tevis quote that he was referencing. I was like, wait, I know that. Why is it golden? Well, let's see. What's the fundamental force we're dealing with here? Solar energy, right? Like
Why is
from
it-
the sun? I swear, you kids come out of the tower greener and greener every year. Why is it gold? Ugh.
I love
Uh,
Tevis.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so those I think that's pretty much all of the major characters and kind of backgrounds of the major
see.
points in the book. I can't think of anybody else or
I don't
any
have anything else in
other
mind.
aspect. I mean, Undying Mind was a boss
We
from a
met in
strike back in B1.
I have it. Dark Below.
Mm-hmm. It was an annoying strike.
Yeah, it was kind of awful. It wasn't awful. It was just kind of. It's one of those ones that it loaded up, and you're like, "Nah, I think I'm good."
I don't know. It just had Arcburn. Arcburn was not
Yep.
fun there. But so that Undying Mind, you have Praedyth, you have Pajari, you have Tebis, you have Pahanin, the Ishtar Collective team, which I'm sure we're going to get into some of their antics a little bit. The big story with the Ishtar Collective team is that they were examining a Vex, and they noticed that that Vex was simulating them examining it. So it was predicting essentially what they were doing, and it was hard to tell which was real and what was not. And so they decided to, with the help of a war mind, jump in there and see what was going on, and then from there ended up with the 227 copies that are in the Vex network still, at least according to Praedyth.
Yep.
But beyond that, Blue, I think that's an intro episode.
I think so as well. So real quick on you guys, back to you guys. Do you want to do some shout outs real quick, Paige?
Oh, paper. Hold on. I have. Let's see. Well, you guys, Blue and Green, for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
See, the team at Ishtar Collective, because if I didn't have Ishtar Collective, I would have to really dig for lore topics and answers. Yes, the clan, my clan, Odin's Crows, they put up with my 4 rants day in, day out, even if they don't want them. But that's pretty much it.
Nice. Shout out to the Bungie team, and especially the community portion of the team, for getting the best community award for the VGAs
Oh,
last
yeah.
night. Bungie,
That was awesome.
yeah, go Destiny community, because we're kind of cool like that.
Even though the game is quote unquote dead.
I haven't heard
Sorry,
that.
I haven't heard that.
In a while. Best community support. But yeah, Deej and Cosmo and DMG, they do an awesome job. And DMG is super active in Reddit. I don't know if you guys troll in there at all, but he does a really good job of kind of addressing things in there. That's where I see him mostly.
I do not, but I see him on Twitter a lot.
Yeah.
I see post.
Blue.
Really, just a big thank you to Paige for reaching out and being willing to jump on with us. And then, yeah, like Green said, a big shout out to the Bungie team. Jonathan Toe is also big shout out to him and his leadership of the narrative team. I know he gave. I love watching on Twitter. He gave a huge shout out to everyone, and then like every single one of the narrative writers was like, you're the narrative lead. You keep forgetting to mention that, and it was just a hilarious little like. It to like after meeting him at Guardian Con and getting a chance to sit down with him, it's just that was exactly the way he is. Like that's just that cat like that entire exchange captured his personality. Like and
Also,
it's so great.
Apparently, according to John Goff, John Toe is not very good at Twitter. So
so that's the funny thing. It was his first tweet. He's been on Twitter. He's been on Twitter for like 2 years, and his first tweet was basically, "Hi, be sure to say thanks to the narrative team." And I was like, "Oh my god!" Like all the because I think Pino and John Goff and I want to say Z. Malazi were all giving him grief. Like, really, that's your first tweet? It was just, oh my gosh, that was so funny. And then I think it's Ariella is the author of Aspect, and that she is a fairly new individual to the team. So huge shout out to that. Oh my gosh, it was such a good one. But
for sure, I liked reading it.
It
like entrapped you from the first entry, and you're like, what? I gotta finish it now.
And then you get done and you're like, no, I gotta go back and start again.
Yeah, I have more questions. No, don't do this to me.
Oh man,
every lore topic ever.
Well, as usual, until next time, goodbye.
Don't do anything funny yet. Need a cup of tea.
Don't do.
I cannot drink tea.
Oh, I love tea.
I think it is. I just feel like I should go to my spice cabinet and grab a bunch of herbs.
You're drinking the wrong kind of tea then.
Yeah, I've never been a big fan. I tried. I really did.
I live fairly close to Celestial Seasonings, and there's so many different freaking types of tea that they've been putting out. I am drinking currently an espresso spice chai tea.
Tea.
Approved.
It is delicious.
I don't know. I like my coffee. I like that bitterness with a couple of sugar. I have a really big coffee cup. And I really like a really nice dark roast.
I do too. I'm just not drinking coffee right now. Let's see here.
All right, I'm gonna potty break and then we can.
Sounds good. Forward. I just don't understand. Light roast chocolate. Take my hot bean juice to the grave. You can take it away from me. Oh, how you dead again? It's an appropriate comment to go along with the name. Just saying.
That's before decaf.
Although I do enjoy coffee, I just wanted to save the coffee for the morning because we're almost out and we're not going to Costco until Sunday. So I am being good and not stealing all the coffee this evening and drinking tea instead. Celestial Seasonings put out a tea, though, that's called Fastalane, and they literally put extra caffeine crystals in it.
What?
So it has the same amount of caffeine as a cup of coffee. So they will do some decaffeination to some of their black teas, and the company that does that basically buy back the crystals, the caffeine crystals, and they put it in tea itself. So it's interesting.
We just got well, usually I do Caribou Obsidian black coffee. I want to try. They don't have it in K-cups yet, and I don't have a coffee pot. So it's hard. but they have, I want to say it's called like the M14 blend. I can't remember who makes it, but it smells so.
We just get some big bags from Costco for our coffee.
Yeah, we don't have coffee.
I can't do K-cups anymore. I don't know
Okay.
why. I just have a hard time doing it just because I go through coffee too quickly, so it's just not price friendly for me.
Yeah.
But
So it's Black Rifle Coffee Company who makes it.
Yeah, Black Rifle's really good.
And I haven't tried it yet. But
nice.
I asked my friend who, yeah, Annie in the chat works at Shields. I have her get me some.
Hey Jay, did you see Pino's tweet?
Which one?
I'm gonna pull the image into chat real quick. So he tweeted out that he said, "Hot damn, I've helped build a lot of Destiny." And that's his shield that has all the different
Did you
expansions he's
see
helped with.
Taze? She got her 5-year
No.
shield today.
I did not see Taze.
Hers is similar. I love that they do that.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Like it's so like so the cool thing with Taze is that she gave a close up picture of it, so you can actually you actually see like. Oh yeah, and then Mevachain just got their 20-year employee thing for their shield.
Dang.
And then I think Chris got his. This year he got
Kristen
the
Barrett.
Yeah, Barrett got the I can't remember what year or what it is. I think it's a 20 year. It might be a 20, might be a 15. But the anniversary that he's on with them, he gets to choose a weapon from the game and they'll make a replica of it.
Oh, that's cool.
So he's doing Lord of Wolves.
Of course.
I would totally pick a different weapon.
Well, it's got special because that was House of Wolves was I think his first thing.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like his first major one. Here, yeah.
As far as how I'm feeling about this season so far, somebody asked about it. Who was it? Oh, Doom. I don't know yet. I enjoyed the storyline for Saint 14. I'm a little confused about the obelisk as far as like I've already finished all the bounties, so it doesn't seem like there's much point in going back to that. But I'm looking forward to like the mission with Saint 14. I freaking loved that. I want to be able to play that over and over because that was fun to be able to fight alongside essentially, even though he's never fighting, he's just holding a bubble forever.
Oh, he's pulling his Zavala.
I mean, yeah, I was going to say Zavala did that for us.
It was pretty epic. I did that fight twice.
Excuse me, kitty cat. That's my coffee.
It does give you buffs.
Yeah,
and another thing,
the medal for 20 years I think goes on the shield because that's the thing with Taze. It shows the shield medal being for the 5-year, which is I think when they get the shield, it has the centerpiece being the 5-year medal that gets replaced. I think every 5 years. I think that gets upgraded like at the 10. I think, but the 20-year medal goes where that 5-year goes on the shield. That shield, I'm blown away by that shield. Like that shield is seriously.
Yeah.
It's pretty.
Oh, it's so pretty.
So fun thing about that Saint fight, depending on how many people are on your fire team, it actually levels.
Oh, really?
Because I played it with Isakol and I played it as a duo, and there was only one of the servitors in the tank. And then I played it with Wicked and Raz, and there were 2 servitors in the tank. So they leveled up at least the difficulty a little bit to match how many is on your fire team.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, that is a pretty medal.
That's the 20-year coin, yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's
I think that one is from the art lead.
One second.
Mm-hmm.
You're good. We actually, Salt, TK, and I were playing survival last night. No, 2 nights ago. And we went against this guy who was just sitting in a corner with Lord of Wolves. And I'm like, why? Out of all the guns you could sit in the corner with, you had to pick that weapon.
The best weapon ever.
Yeah, totally. I gotta say, I still rock the emblem that we got from laser tag weekend.
Okay, sorry.
You're fine.
Had to tuck Julie into bed. Not literally, but nightly.
Actually say goodnight.
Yeah, because I haven't seen her since this morning before she left for work because it was a long day. A long day for her. Did Jay step away too? Oh,
Nope.
okay.
Yeah, today was my long day. 9 to 6 at the I'm just glad it was busy because when it's slow, there's only so much cleaning you
yeah.
especially in a salon. There's hair everywhere. Everywhere.
That's true.
You could sweep and 5 minutes later you find another pile of hair.
I helped my stylist get a couple new shoes, and she's constantly looking at my feet now when I come into the shop because she wants to see if I have any new pairs that she should get, and she'll critique them. She's from South Korea, and she'll critique them. And I had a pair of what's called Embers. They're Tevas. It's basically like quilted shoes.
Oh, okay.
And they're cute, but she's like, oh no, the hair would get stuck everywhere there. It's like, yeah, you're right.
Yep.
It would.
Yep.
It would be terrible to work
I
in.
honestly, I usually stick to my Timberlands, or I just wear my Adidas because no matter what I wear, I'm gonna get hair everywhere.
If you, I don't know how your feet are, but if you can dish out a little bit, if your feet or legs are hurting or anything like that, Dansko does have some other styles besides the clogs.
Yeah.
Work really well.
I don't do too bad. I have bad IT bands, so anything nice, dirty, my best friend.
Gotcha. I'm ready when you are, Jay.
Okie doke. Welcome to Focus Fire Chat, recorded live on December 13th, 2019, over on twitch.tv/FocusFireChat as we continue our discussion over the lore book aspect. This particular episode will serve as what we have come to call the advanced session of the week's exploration. Congratulations to those who signed up for a deeper dive. Before we go any further, however, let's run through a quick introduction of who all we have with us on the show. As always, this is your host, Blue Crew 86.
And this is the crocheting fiend, green-eyed music lover.
Acceptable. And
Yay.
last but not least, in the hot seat as guest co-host, we have our good friend Paige. Paige, how are you doing?
Hi, guys. I'm doing great.
I get you every time with my...
Yeah, every time I listen to Focus Fire, you come up with something just totally out of left field.
I try.
Great.
It's, like, for a while...
Jazz it up
I
a
was
little bit.
attempting to- yeah, I know. I was attempting to write it down because, you know, you had the voice of a flower adjusted, and then he would have his weird names. It's just like, you know, I'm just going to do descriptors because those are way easier than actual names.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah. But Blue, we are in the advanced episode.
Yep, so let's just jump right into it. So where do you want to just start at the beginning? Do you think that's the easiest way to go into this?
I mean, I'd say it's chronological, but it's not.
It's not. It's time travel. It gets wibbly wobbly really fast.
It gets really wibbly wobbly. I think it's interesting how it starts and ends very similarly, but you know.
Right.
I think I mean, the other thing that I just like, you know, on that note, the names of the entries themselves is, and I know this is obviously probably done purposely, but like
for
the
sure.
name, like, and like as you get deeper into like the actual definitions of the names, it's like I was like, oh, that probably has something to do. No, it has everything to do with it.
I am so glad you put that in the show notes because that was the first thing I wrote down on my notes. And I'm like, I'm hoping someone caught on to this.
Oh my gosh. Like the thing,
because then it started
bookends,
clicking throughout it.
The bookend
and I'm like,
entries are the ones that killed me though. The realist and irrealist. Like that was the thing that I was like, I'm like, okay. So for example, realist is the first entry. And realist is what's called a grammatical mood, which is used to principally indicate that something is a statement of fact. So basically, it's expressing what the speaker considers to be a known state of affair. The example would be something like, he works. This is a direct assertion about reality in regards to the present indicative of the word work. So if I say that he works, that means that he is working. Like right now, currently, he is doing something. It is real right now.
Yep.
And then to jump a little bit ahead, irrealist is the exact opposite. And that's the first and the last entry. So it's like, it's a very interesting dynamic going on. And like the evolution of the definitions as you go through corresponds with the content of those entries very closely. And so, you know, again, we'll definitely probably touch on them each one as we go. But that was one that stood out huge. That one, and then I think it's Atelic was the other one, and we talked about that one a little bit.
Yep.
Atelic has very interesting connotations within regards to not just the context of its card, but actually the whole book, because Atelic is discussing the concept of a terminology or the use of language to indicate a goal or an endpoint. So Atelic is actually something that doesn't have an endpoint, whereas Telic is something that does. And so having an entry that's called Atelic is an interesting component. And then also the entry in itself is talking about the Vex in the garden, and it's an explanation of time from the Vex perspective, or from a perspective of someone who is pretty familiar with the Vex. And that's the one that's Tevis. And that's where we were kind of talking in the introductory session about the the analogy of time as a river. It was really, it's just, again, it's like those three were just the ones that immediately stood out to me. But yeah, I oh gosh, yeah.
I read them all first couple times, and then I went back and I'm like, something like I'm missing something here. So I went back and looked up the definitions after I read the book. And it was so uncanny how directly it not necessarily affected, but like summarized the entry.
Right. Yes. That was, yeah.
Because you can look at each entry's name and be like, oh, so basically that's what happens in the story of that entry.
Do we want to get into the actual thing that happened in Realis?
Sure.
So in Realis, the undying mind lies in the garden, a ruin of metal given over to greenery, a barrow rising out of black soil rich with nitrogen and thought. Everything in the garden becomes of the garden eventually. Shed leaves decompose and fertilize the soil, so do the bones and unspoken ideas of everyone who couldn't find the end of the maze. So do the wordless songs of the Vex gardeners. They walk between the leaves, encouraging growth, laying down their bronze pathways, the only straight lines in all the garden's tangles. The Vex weave themselves into the garden, and the garden returns the favor. Harpies patrol in the air as goblins do on the ground, their veins wafting in still air on their endless, untiring rounds. The pathways lie dull against granite, no powers run through them, not since the heart stopped beating. But the Vex of the Soul Divisive have programmed themselves to worship the darkness. It has given them power before, and the Vex understand time. What has happened before is, somewhere, still always happening. What will happen is happening now. Soil that lies fallow for a season will recover and produce again. Power that wanes will wax again, if the ground is ready for it. The harpies stop where they are, a shudder running through each of them in order from one end of the garden to the other, a flicker, a wash of power, coming from somewhere distant. A pulse. The power it carries lights up the pathways. The mind's eye blinks for a bare moment, under its blanket of lichen. The power passes through the garden, overruns the Vex machinery within it, floods the network beyond it. A moment held like the shore after the tide rushes out. Motes of something that isn't dust shake in the air. The bronze pathways hum, a counterpoint to the goblin song, and the garden's door vibrates with them. First question, which pulse? Do we know?
I can't
No.
say conclusively. I don't think we have like a conclusive answer.
I mean, we have mentions of pulses later on in the cards, which referring specifically to like pulses that Praedyth like feels or senses. It's not necessarily the pulse that we all probably thought of initially, which is the pulse of the traveler going back out.
Right.
So that does, and like not necessarily suggest, but it does at least bring to light that imagery. But the garden has laid dormant mostly since the death of the heart. But there's another card that talks about how the Vex are trying to regrow the heart or at least protect the heart. So this one doesn't necessarily mention that, but maybe it's an instance of the heart coming back. Does the heart
Yeah,
pulse?
I mean, not sure.
I mean, we kill the undying mind. That's something that has been said multiple times. on
Mhm.
a couple different characters, Osiris and Ikora. Which, by the way, still bugged by the fact that the teleported
They just
like
transmatted it.
It's I know, but like it still bugs me.
Actually, my personal opinion is they just pushed it off the edge and put it in a volcano.
Let it shatter.
And some ungodly, like just some citizens who just showed up to the city. Oh, it's so beautiful. Crash.
What was that? The Guardians got done with their experiment. Science fair's over.
Science fair's over. Ikora won. Everyone can go home now. But this one, it doesn't have so much as
It's
major.
more of a broad spectrum of what's going on. There's nothing like super huge.
That's true. Blue, did you have anything else that you wanted to discuss about this one?
Not really on this one. No.
Okay. Mirative? So what is a mirative?
Oh my gosh, this one sent me down a rabbit hole.
I see that. I'm gonna let you just take after this one.
Well, okay, so this gets into the idea of what is translations, like translation of things that don't translate into English and vice versa and all that. So mirative, like the base definition of mirative is it's a grammatical mood that expresses unexpected revelations of new information or a surprise. This doesn't exactly, like, mirative does not exist in English. Like, it's not a concept that we have within our language, because English is what's described as a morphosyntactic system. It's not something that does well with this type of grammatical mood. And this was actually this phrase was coined by an individual who goes by the name of Scott Delancey, and I believe it was earlier, but the main work that actually discusses this is the Mirative and Evidentiality article, which he wrote in 2001. And he says in the intro, evidentiality refers to the grammatical marking of the source of evidence for a proposition. Mirativity refers to the marking of a proposition as representing information which is new to the speaker. Mirativity has sometimes been thought of as part of the larger category of evidentiality. Based on evidence from Tibetan, Hare, and other languages, it is argued that mirativity must be recognized as a distinct semantic and grammatical category. And then he goes on to say that the term mirativity refers to the linguistic marking of an utterance as conveying information which is new or unexpected to the speaker. And so his primary example is the Tibetan language and how there is a structural difference in their syntax based on if something was intentional or accidental. And it's really interesting, but it gets really far into the weeds as far as translating them. But he goes on to say, and then he also talks about a couple individuals who looked at Hare and then a few other languages that have similar things. And he also then goes on to say that mirativity is not directly expressed in the morphosyntactic system of English, though, as pointed out by Akasuka, it exists as a covert semantic category. However, it can be marked intonationally. The mirative intonation contour is an exaggerated version of the declarative intonation, which the tonic rise considerably higher. So what that means, do you want to go for it?
A declarative sentence where I have this ball of yarn. There's a tonal like pitches that your voice will automatically go. Whereas
English has a lot based on tone. Like there's a lot of implied context with English. That's why reading text in English is surprisingly difficult, because you miss a lot. Like English is notorious for
inflections.
This. Yeah, there's no inflection. And because I think, what was it? I mean, we've seen this in Destiny with Purple, with our argument about the Warmind entry from way back in D1. And like, she's like, she put a different inflection on the letter A, completely changed the card. Completely changed the meaning of the card. And it's interesting to see how that, but yeah, so sorry, go for it, Green.
No, I was just gonna say the easiest example is asking a question
Mhm.
because oftentimes when people ask questions, "How are you doing?" or "How you?" or where does this place go?" You have that where
Mhm.
the end of the phrase turns up. But yeah, tonal explanations. It's
Yeah.
interesting when you do a voice study because I was looking at trying to imitate Morla. She actually breaks so many rules when it
What?
comes
Morla break rules?
She
No.
Morla, oh my
rules?
god.
What rules?
It drives me crazy because I can't figure out how she's doing it because she reads it in such a way that doesn't follow the normal English speaking patterns. And so it's
Her
incredible.
interpretation is different than what one
Yeah. So
should
even
be.
just like imitating what she says, if I were to imitate what she says, I can mimic. But if I were to read Eris lines from the lore, it's incredibly difficult to do it in the same way that she would because I can't figure out exactly what rules she's breaking where.
Mhm. Well, it's even like reading or like misunderstanding a text message. Like, we need to talk. Are you like, oh, we need to talk and like catch up, or do we need to talk and like have a serious conversation?
I'm in
Right.
trouble. That's
Yeah.
when I send back the gif. I'm in danger.
I'm in danger. Little boy sitting on the bus. But okay, so when narrative, we were talking about at the very beginning how a lot of the titles are really good at explaining somewhat what's going on in the
Mhm.
card. So in this card, Pradith is connecting with the Ishtar Academy group. Like he is,
The Splunkers.
yeah, he's connecting to them for the first time. And well, not necessarily for the first time.
No, it is the first time. Well,
Are you?
yeah, I see.
No,
Yeah,
it's
I
not.
see.
It's not.
He thought
You already
they
said
were.
you.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
He tells
He
the
thought they
hallucination.
were in. Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I love that introduction. He's like, "What?
Yep.
Yeah, you already said that. What? When?"
So coinciding with like the narrative explaining the card, I think it also explained how we took the card because we're all very, I mean, at least I was when I first read the word Pradith, I was like, what? Wait, hold on a second, something's fishy here.
Mm.
And then I read it as if I was going back to No Time to Explain and listening to Pradith tell us about what happened and listening to his ghost kind of thing. So I think it also explained our interpretation of the card itself.
I mean, Pradith now is cut off from everything. He doesn't have his ghost or
Mhm.
anything like that. But is it Pradith trying to he's getting a little lost in translation? Or is it just the fact that he's unsure of what's changed and why he's able to talk to them? Like, I'm still trying to figure out how it has a direct tie to the narrative concept.
So I think, like, looking back at it, he was very, like, confident when we heard him back during the No Time to Explain
Mhm.
quest, whereas now he's very, like, skeptical. Like, is this really happening? Can
Mhm.
I take what they're saying to truth? Or just kind of his interpretation of what's going on where he's at now.
Makes sense. I think it's funny how he calls out Veru's calling it out in chat. He doesn't have a fondness for Ashermere either.
Yeah.
No, I love
Say
that.
again?
It's not
Yup.
good. Pradis Radio's talking to him. Which at least no, he says it doesn't. It's not a familiar voice. He says because he says he wishes it at least use a familiar voice, a Pahanin or a
He'd
Teiko or
even
a
take
Kabir
me.
or even a Mir at this point.
Right, but later, like, okay, he says his voice.
Oh, that's right.
His,
Yeah,
his voice
nearly
phase it hurts
Mirish.
to
Yeah.
talk. Say again. The hallucination has a new voice. This time sharper, male, nearly mirror-ish.
Yep.
Band number. Do you think that's Shin?
I-
Dr. Shim?
Shim, yeah, I think so. But I just love his reaction. He's like, "Oh my god."
Uh-huh. He sighs. Catalogs more constellations. And is, oh my gosh. The fact that he's trapped in this cell, which brings up the question, is it a cognitive trap? Or is it a physical trap? Is it yes to both?
I think it is yes to both because
Yeah.
he's in the vault. Like,
right.
so he is physically there, but he's also chat irrelevant. It is not a metaphor. He's also trapped outside of time as well because that was the whole thing. He's literally inside the Vex network because that was the whole thing at the end. Is what they're trying to. That's one of the things that they're trying to get back.
So, if we move on to the next card, we get our first, I'm going to call it an interlude, because it's completely not Praedyth.
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody figured out, I've seen theories on it, but I haven't like fully bought into all of them with the K's and V's and the carrots.
I have no idea. This is like
Yeah.
for the
what it
longest
reminds
time.
me
This
of?
card threw
I
me for a
swear
and a half.
I was like I was almost like, God damn it, Seth.
Well, you know what my brain went with if the K's were not in there, I could totally follow this because carrots and V's are used to notate down bows and up bows in music for young children. That was like
Okay.
the first thing my brain went to is and it talks about silent singing, whether or not this is like a notation of what he's singing.
Oh.
don't know.
You
I
know what?
mean-
If this Yeah, that's true.
But I haven't seen anything as far as like exactly what this is yet. I haven't seen any like hidden code in here because believe me, I spent about 45 minutes trying to find something.
What do I have written?
See,
But you get other speakers in here too. Like
well,
you have
but see,
the
that's the thing
parentheses.
is the Pajari connection there
Mhm.
too. Is oh gosh, hang on. I'm gonna look something up real quick. Continue. I'll be right back.
Okay, I'll just read the card
Mhm.
as best I can, and because it's a visual thing with the carrots and everything, it's going to be a little difficult to read that. But
a little
I'll
awkward.
Yeah. So Gnomic goes, he is not, he is walking in the garden. He is talking, silent singing. And then there's like the little up caret, K, up caret, K, V, up caret, V, up caret, V, up caret, V, up caret, V, parentheses. Watch your six. Don't worry about me. Grow, grow, grow. In parentheses. He holsters his gun to gesture. He holsters his gun to drink. His gun is rusted into its holster, and he will never pull it out again. Parentheses. How bad can it be? How bad can it be? How can we grow, grow, grow? In parentheses. A titan is a wall, a shield, a cup filling itself to overflowing. The container changes the shape of its contents, but the contents change the nature of the container, and the nature is eternity. Parentheses. Who knows what's listening? It's listening. It's saying grow, grow, grow in parentheses. There is a shape that is his mind, and the shape is protect the shape, is sacrifice the shape, is parentheses grow in parentheses. And then more of like the little carrots and V's and looks like 5 times. He was named too well. He is his own grave, and the cut on his left hand will never heal. So fun callback to Pajari and the cut and the hallucination back in D1. I guess hallucination / not hallucination.
Yeah, the vision.
Mm-hmm. but there's multiple voices, quote unquote, being viewed here because you have the watch your six, don't worry about me.
Mm-hmm.
And there's multiple, it's almost as if there's multiple instances all being thrown into the same card.
Right.
'Cause
It felt very, like, when I read it, it felt very stagnant. Like, you're stuck at a point, but watching everything go on around you kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. He is not. He is walking in the garden. He is talking, silent singing. I mean, it's like stuttering, almost.
Right. Trying to.
So the definition of gnomic, while Blue is still continuing and everything, is the expressed in or of the nature of short, pithy maxims or aphorisms, enigmatic or ambiguous, aka this is going to be very ambiguous. Fun fact on this term, we began to use gnomic, which is the adjective form of gnome, in the early 19th century, around 1784 to be exact. I like how you put around 1784.
I wrote
Even
that
though
like is a
exact-
train of conscious thought. So I was
Yeah.
reading it and I was like, oh, they actually gave me the full date. Okay, I'm going to go back and edit that real quick.
Blue wrote this in a very gnomic fashion. This was used
Rude.
originally to describe a style of writing / speech characterized by pithy phrases, which are often terse to the point of mysteriousness. This stemmed from the use of the term gnome, taken from Greek word that translates to know. In the tales, these creatures were couched in metaphorical or figurative language.
Couched.
That makes way more sense. I was like, I looked back after reading it and I was like, that doesn't make sense. Couched.
Sorry.
They're on couch. They're crouching by couches. They're drinking their brandies and being all mysterious.
Oh my God,
Smoke is
that's-
billowing in blue from a curtained area.
Oh, that makes me happy.
Uh-huh. Okay. Let's see. Couched in metaphorical or figurative language, often portrayed as being quite clever and always concise in their manner. Examples of some gnomic poetry are Know Thyself. Too many cooks spoil the broth. Where did that one come from? I've never
That's it.
heard that one.
It's an old English one. It's also too many chefs in the kitchen.
Gotcha.
Too many. I just blanked on the other one, but yeah, I mean it's basically if there's too many leaders, everyone's too busy leading and not doing anything.
It's a metaphorical short metaphorical
Yes. Yep.
statement. These aphorisms were collected into works referred to as nomologia. No, I don't know. Which were anthologies used to instruct younger members of Greek society. One of the more well-known of these collections was compiled by Stobaeus in the 5th century AD and remained popular into well into the Middle Ages.
I'm so annoyed that I can't find this. But anyways,
what are you looking for?
Well, so there's a thing. So like the connection that I made, and it was like way back when we first started. I thought it was the Warlock episode, and it probably was, and I just forgot to write it down. But Pujari is actually a Hindu priest, is the term is also there, and they are responsible for performing rituals, including puja, which is a very specific or a very lengthy ritual, I believe. If I'm going off memory here, so I apologize if I misquote or if I misstate that. But the Pujari is the one who performs the puja, and that entails setting things on fire. It entails the appropriate singing and all that. And that was where when we were talking about Pujari way back in D1, I had kind of read up on that, and I was like, that's really interesting, because we knew at the time we had the warlock class, the Sunsinger, which is the immolation, the self-immolation, and then resurrection. And that tied into, and I'm so annoyed at myself because I can't find my notes, but there was a tie-in to an actual Pujari with the figure of Pujari, and it was a really interesting concept. It was around the igniting of a it was something, and I'm so aggravated that I don't have my notes in front of me. But anyways, when you started talking about the singing, that's where I was like, you know what, that actually makes more sense, because I'm still reading this as this is Pujari talking. Because, and I know a lot of people say are attributing this to Kabir or Kabir or whatever, however you want to say his name, Kabir or whatever, the milk stout drinker. But the thing is like, when I read it, it's when I see the part that a lot of people are attributing the reason that they say that it's Kabir that's writing this, it seems to me actually that's an outsider looking in. Because he says a titan is a wall, a shield, a cup filling itself to overflowing. It's not saying I am a titan that is a wall. It seems to me that it's someone watching that event and is seeing that transpire from an outside perspective. Because then he goes,
I think the cut on the hand is the larger.
Oh yeah, I that's my ending argument too, is like, yeah. But then also when you say there is a shape that is his mind, and the shape is protect, the shape is sacrifice, the shape is grow. Like, it's when it comes to the parts that is about Kabir, there's always a third person
pronoun
syntax. Like, he holsters his gun to gesture. He holsters his gun to drink. It's not I holster my gun, you know. Though
it could be. It could be.
Right. And that's where I was going to say, the parts in the parentheses, however, make me wonder. And this is where I can almost see this almost being a case where Pujari might have been in the vault with them. Because
that's
the only reason I say that is because, again, we know that there was a fire team that went into the vault, but we only have 3 names. We don't know if it was a traditional 6-team raid group.
The other thing I would argue is that Pujari, this doesn't necessarily mean in the vault, it's in the Vex network. Pujari has been known to be hallucinating because he's getting too involved with the Vex milk and everything like that. And he's been in the Black Garden. He's been in the Vex network.
Yeah, so and that's why with the original Shores of Time, it was Vex milk underneath. Because I think we had that conversation there. Because I think in the new one, it's water, right?
Yeah, because it's on Nessus. It's not in the it's not in the Vex anymore.
Because I think I remember us having this conversation. Because that was the other thing, is when we see Pujari for the first time, he's thrown himself off of the Shores of Time, which was a map in D1.
Off of Point B.
Oh God, off Point B. Same as the one that's in current iteration. God, Point B was the biggest suicide leap. But like, that was kind of the inside joke. But he was also a Thanatonaut, so he was doing it on purpose to get these visions, to record them, and that was where he had the vision of the garden. But the thing is with the Shores of Time, when you throw yourself off, you fall in Vex milk. So he's committing his own suicide. He's committing suicide, but then he's ending up in Vex. So it's and then the whole connection there was with the Vault of Glass armor. We knew at that time that Vex milk was a very powerful hallucinogen. So there was this huge connection going on there as well.
Yep. You want to move on to the next one? Epistemic.
Yeah, sorry, I think it's Mr. Mikey says that he was saying that pretty sure it states somewhere in D1 that it was just the 3 of them going in, and I understand that, because also even in here we see Praedyth mention that there was only 3 of them.
Mhm.
my one counterpoint, and I'm not going to go on die on this hill, so I'll just throw it out there and then I'm going to leave it. But my one counterpoint is that in the same way that Pradith has been forgotten because of the way that he was erased, you could technically argue that there could have been others that were erased in the same manner.
That Pradith
Right.
would have forgotten the rest of his fire team.
Well, that three of them could have been consumed by what was it, the it's not the oracles,
Atheon?
it's the
The
Gorgons.
Oh, that got
Gorgons.
lost. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like they tried to
We
3-man
don't know. There's
fog.
there's too many whys.
Yeah,
Or there's too many questions.
this is why Paige loves this entry, is that
Yeah.
it answers so much.
Yep, totally.
I actually love this entry because it doesn't answer anything.
It doesn't even try to answer anything.
Nope.
No.
It's just a fun read.
And it is, and it when you say it reads kind of like music, it's almost as if you have that like melody line and then you have your line.
Your
Mhm.
chorus,
It's like
yeah.
two different perspectives of the same thing happening.
Yeah, a bit. It's just really hard to. I don't know. It's just there's
It's hard to
One
pinpoint
that's-
exactly what's going on.
there's one that is a constant worry, like a guy answering concerns. Watch your
Yep.
6. How bad can it be? How bad can it be? Who knows what's listening? It's listening. It's like the inner
Mhm.
dialogue, and then you have the not necessarily the thoughts, but the actions that are happening,
Right.
as well as the thoughts. I don't know. It's interesting. Blue, do you want to take on the next one?
Yes, epistemic. So epistemic is a term that actually requires a bit of clarification. Epistemic is in itself relating to knowledge and or the degree of its validation. So to be clear, it's an adjective which talks about the act of acquiring knowledge itself. It is often, very often, confused to be the same as epistemology or epistemological. Epistemology is the study or philosophy of the acquisition of proper knowledge, and epistemological is the adjective that refers to epistemology. So the difference is epistemic is actually the acquiring of the knowledge itself, or epistemology is the study of the acquisition of proper knowledge. So it's a very, very, very slight one. But yeah, chat's like, gotta love English. This actually leads to the concept of the epistemic state, which is the topic that discusses the guiding of decisions and what to believe in particular situations. So this is actually not stating anything about the actual truth of a situation, but rather what is believed or assumed within that situation. So this is talking about the experience of the individual who is having the experience, not the actual experience. Which to me makes a ton of sense, but I also have a lot of history with phenomenology. It's the
perspective of what's going on, not necessarily what's going on.
It's the understanding of the bias of the individual and how they are perceiving a situation, not the de facto true, air quote here, true situation. And the summary of this card really, it kind of talks about that, because this is Pradith discussing his various visions within the vault. And so he starts off actually, and he starts talking about he has watched from his cell for longer than he knows how to quantify, sitting inside looking out. He's seen so many different timelines, there is no way to tell which are real. From a certain point of view, they might all be. And he goes on and he kind of talks about the different iterations of the different timelines. It says some things he recognizes. He sees the traveler often, though he can't feel its light through the bars of his cage. Sometimes it hangs over a city so familiar it makes his heart ache. Sometimes it hangs in an alien sky, and foreign shapes make airy loops around it, ghosts of unrecognizable make. Some visions he gets once, while some come back over and over again. One recurring image, a piece of the traveler cracked off from its body, lying belly up in a forest with a small figure standing in front of it. The figure changes every time, but the sickly glow of the traveler doesn't. Once he sees a vision of himself, straight-shouldered, warm in the Martian sun, standing between Kabir and Pahanin. Kabir's helmet is familiar. It's one Pradith helped make. He was a defter hand with spin foil lamination than Kabir ever was. Kabir has worn that helmet barely 5 years into their life as a fire team, worn it for 6 straight months till he cracked it in half in the crucible. That vision makes Pradith weep. Desiccated as he is, he didn't think he had it in him. The vault shows him Mercury again and again, recognizable only thanks to the scale of the sun in the sky. Sometimes there's rubble hanging in space, a planetary ring still forming. Sometimes there's nothing but rubble, and when he turns, he doesn't see any of the other planets in the system. Gone, somehow eaten down to the crumbs. Pradith wouldn't mind these visions so much if he could only feel the warmth of that colossal sun. His hands are always cold here in the vault. He sees waves of aliens cross the solar system's threshold, emerging into the light from outside the heliopause. Some of them travel with the air of eager, conquering armies, paint fresh and banners snapping. Some of them move as if they're on the run from something behind them out in the galactic dark. He watches the movements of the Vex. He learns to tell them apart. The shining silver ones, the brass ones with back-swept horns, the ones with eyes glowing white. Occasionally, scattered among them, are pockets of Vex stained with verdigris, their arms trailing shawls of moss. All the other Vex keep away from those ones. Twice he's seen other Vex fight the mossy ones. It looks like the other Vex are frightened of them, as much as Vex can be. Some timelines have veils drawn over them, a darkness too thick to see through. They push back through against Pradith's sights, resisting. All the timelines he sees could be true for some living being. He doesn't know which are true for him. He doesn't know if that's a meaningful question to ask. He asks it anyway, and he keeps looking. There's no reason not to. He's got all the time in the world.
Do you have an interpretation on this one, Paige?
There's a lot of information. Kind of had to pick it up. But, I mean, the biggest thing he points out is all those timelines could be true for some. But I think the one that stuck out to me is when he's talking about the traveler and it being cracked and there's a small figure standing in front of it. Like, is that us when we get our light back? Did he see that as it was happening, or did he see it before it was happening, kind of thing?
Or
So there's a lot of like,
did he see it as all the Guardians who are experiencing Destiny 2 as different realities?
right.
So I have a weird analogy for how I understand the Vex being able to see into the different times like this. You know the song "It's 5 o'clock somewhere"?
Yeah.
That's what's there's always going to be somebody somewhere doing that. It's always going to
That's a
be.
good way to capture it.
It's a really dumb way to capture it, but it works.
It is, but it works.
Yeah. But the other thing that this one really, I mean, it kind of bothers me because you do get the aspect that it's a physical location that he's at. And he's seeing all these different things over and over. And the question I have is, how is he seeing these different things? Every time that we have gone into the Vex network or into Mercury or anything like that, we've been essentially reenacting moments and interacting with him there. Is he in a simulation of it? Is he walking through these different aspects? I mean, he doesn't know what is true at this point necessarily.
Right.
And it's hard to say what is true in general, just because Vex is not, they just don't make it easy on you.
No,
It's like,
Vex never do.
it's like, is the Saint 14 that we fought alongside in the mission a true Saint 14? I mean, there's just lots of questions to go into it.
It just makes you want to dig. It makes you want to dig, but there's nothing to dig.
I mean, there's pieces you can kind of
Right.
toy with for sure.
I think the other interesting aspect of this is he kind of sees how like the Vex covered in the moss. He kind
The
of
soul
sees how
divisive.
he sees how they interact with other Vex.
So
And I mean, we haven't quite seen that in game necessarily.
we've read about it in lore a few different times.
Yeah, but we have done that. But we haven't, like, when we go into the Black Garden, we just see the soul divisive. We don't really see them interacting with other Vex.
That's true. My question is the reason why the other Vex so not kosher with the soul divisive, the fact that the soul divisive is the grouping that reprogrammed itself to worship. So in other words, it's other compared to the other Vex. The other Vex does not necessarily do that.
Right? Does it see it as like a festering wound to the Vex? Is it trying to get rid of it?
I don't know. Blue, do you have any thoughts?
No. I mean, no.
Not with that one.
Not with this one. I mean, again, I think that, like we had been kind of saying for the rest of the other ones, the name of the entry really does a good job in summarizing it. He starts off and it's very epistemic, like he's just experiencing it, he's just acquiring this knowledge, and then at the very end you kind of start getting into the more epistemological kind of approach, because he's like, okay, but why, like, are any of these actually true? Like, do any of these actually matter? And that's where he starts kind of transcending from, the epistemic, okay, this is the information, but why am I getting it? How am I getting it? What's the point of this information? What's the meaning of that?
Think
Go for it.
Do you think he realizes how he's getting it, or do you think it's
I don't
just
think
happening?
so. I think it's just happening. Like, I think that's part of the problem with him, with his experience of this, is he's a prisoner of the Vex, and in being a prisoner of the Vex, he's stuck with them, and they see time so differently. We'll talk about that here in a second, but like they exist in a whole different level of existence. They perceive things. Their epistemic reality is so much different than ours, because as a intellectually, as a mortal symbiote or a mortal entity, we experience time in a very set fashion. We experience the transfer or the progression of time very, very linearly, whereas a Vex is arguably not that same base. And so with their experience, their epistemic of experience is that it doesn't exist that same way. So for them, this all makes sense. Like they're perceiving this, and maybe he's just piggybacking on what they're seeing because he's in a prison cell, and they just don't care that he's seeing this, or maybe he accidentally broke into something. The thing is, like, because the vault is designed for Vex, it's like he's stuck in an alien spaceship, and the aliens don't speak English. I know chat was talking about Arrival just a few minutes ago. And like that's a really good example here because, you know, the whole concept of arrival is that in understanding the language, you kind of understand, you know, the species.
Right.
And that's not anything new. That's actually throughout a lot of sci-fi literature, you see that. But
Yep.
Point of
right.
order, real quick.
Mm-hmm.
The I think saying that the Vex experience time differently is it needs to be fleshed out a little bit more, in so much that they don't experience time backwards or anything like that, but they're able to interact with time in a different way than we do.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it still flows in, as far as we can tell, in one direction for them. Like
Mm.
it's still moving forward, but they can step in and out of it.
Yeah, they're not anchored in the flow like we are.
Correct.
And it's hard because there's like time itself is such an artificial construct, but it's also one of those artificial constructs that has been ingrained in humanity for so
Yep.
long that, you know, the idea of
Time is just the idea of actions passing and being
but
able to mark those upon on a scale of some sort, right?
yes and no. Like there is and this is where it gets kind of dicey because there is varying philosophies of how to tell temporal fluidity. Like there's issues with that because time is, a lot of people would argue that time is outside of things. Like time is just the way time is, but that's not actually true. Time is something that it's a very Schrodinger like experience. Like if you don't pay attention to a clock, you don't know what time it is. Like you might know
Right.
that it is a certain point in the existence of something, but your experience of time will be fluid. If you're and this is often the case when you're enjoying yourself, time goes by faster.
But
Yep.
that's what I'm meaning, is that when you're observing it and you're marking it, you are setting it onto a scale and in some ways elongating it, rather than um when you're not observant of it and you're just having a good time and enjoying it. It is all the different actions are happening, but you're not making note of minute details within the actions necessarily,
Yeah.
and, creating that elongation upon the scale. It is
Mm-hmm.
just passing very fluidly, rather than, I guess, I don't even know a good word for this. I
No, I
have
mean,
an
and
image.
that's the thing is like that, and then, you know, from a philosophical standpoint, you can also ask from for certain points of view, time passes differently.
Right.
Because for you, 5 minutes might be, but for me, 5 minutes might seem like an hour.
But
But
it's based on your experiences
right,
within
and
those
then
5 minutes.
if you
Yep.
if you look at a clock, technically speak, and this is the part that gets really difficult to like conceive of, because we're so used to having a clock that's telling us that tick 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 tick, no matter what you're doing, it's that tick tick tick, you know, and the idea that that doesn't mean anything
Yeah, that's
for a
not
lot of
time.
people, it's very uncomfortable because it's like, wait, what? Like that is just an artificial construct that we've put into reality that says we're going to agree that this is air quote time.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, that's not time. Like that's a artificial construct to measure the distance that something has gone. But time itself is something that's arguably more fluid. It's one of those things where it's like it gets really abstract really quickly because you're talking about the variety of experiences of a situation, and then you have to agree if there is a real truth or if there's a set of truth, and relativism gets in and messes everything up. And
The
yeah, and
easiest way
then
that
chat's talking about the relativity to gravity, you know, like you have that
Right.
whole issue.
Black holes and stuff like
Mhm.
that. The thing that gets me, as far as easiest way to describe it, it's like looking at music. the difference between like a quarter note and 16th notes.
Right.
When you're observing it, it looks like it's taking up so much more space on the page, which it does, but it's actually this, like you could have the same amount of time pass between the two of them. Just one's broken up into 16ths and the other one's broken just a quarter of it. Beat versus 4 within beat. Anyway. Moving on, perhaps?
Yes. Please. Like
Before
I
we
love
get
I
down
love
the
I mean like
never-ending loop of time.
I love talking about this stuff because it ties into phenomenology, and that ties into like an individual's experience of something. But you have to, like, before you can start really seriously talking about that construct, you have to also like come to an agreement with everyone that's in the conversation that everyone's experience is equally valid.
Yep.
With the understanding that everyone's experience is unique and alien to the other. And
Also,
so
equally invalid in that respect, though.
right. No, right. And that's
Right.
and that's something that with like we always took it in regards to psychology, and so phenomenology from a psychological standpoint is really helpful. Phenomenology from a philosophical standpoint gets really hairy really fast because it can dovetail into very dangerous topics as far as, especially with morality, and stuff like that. But like the thing is like it's still an interesting thought experiment. But I would probably, I mean, like we would be here all day,
Right.
because you can. Yeah, it's just it's fascinating, but it takes so long to discuss because every point of view is something that is equally valid and equally worth exploration, even those that don't make sense or are uncomfortable. Actually, sometimes those are more important to explore. So, and that's where the like epistemic and epistemology kind of, that's where the difference is. Epistemic is like the actual acquiring of that, which is again kind of where we're kind of, to bring it back into this entry. Epistemic is Pradith is acquiring this knowledge. And he gets into an epistemological standpoint at the end when he asks, what is the point of this? How am I getting this? What is valid here? That is an epistemological question about the epistemic image or the epistemic information that he has gotten. If that makes sense.
Yep.
So deontic.
Yes, please.
So back to philosophy.
Yeah, I was like,
back to your favorite topic.
Oh my gosh.
the Ansible is a thought experiment. It was proved impossible.
Oh, this one actually, from a philosophical standpoint, is really easy to explain. Deontology is a normative ethical theory that is posited within what's referred to as moral philosophy. And it basically says that morality of an action should be based on whether or not that action itself is right or wrong under a series of rules. So it's, instead of based on the consequences of the action. So in kind of a short term, it says ignoring the idea that the end should never be used to justify the means, because the means should justify the means. If the end justifies means that require a sacrifice of doing what is right to achieve that end is in and of itself not ethically acceptable.
Okay.
And then
it's the do good because you're doing good, not necessarily because
correct.
it's
Yeah.
get you a cookie at the end of the day because you didn't make them mad.
It's not allowing. There's a lot of historical examples of like, oh, the ends justify the means. You know, we'll do these atrocious crimes because in the end we get, you know, fill in the blank of whatever BS reason you want. The argument of deontology is that should never be acceptable. It should be that you are doing the thing that is right and that is just and is good because it is right, just, and good. It's not because you don't get a pass on Yes, I'm trying so hard not to say that, Green.
Yeah, I know.
You don't get a pass for doing something stupid or evil because you argue that the end is good. Like, it can't be good because in order to get to it, you have to do evil. Right? Does that and
Yeah.
that's an argument that is very 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 divisive on moral philosophy, because obviously the people who are calling the ends that justify the means don't like that being pointed out, and so
Makes things difficult. So in this
and from
card,
a linguistics standpoint, real quick, sorry,
okay, go for it. No, go for it.
from a linguistic standpoint, deontic is just simply expressing duty or obligation. So it's again, it's not using ethical. It's just saying this is your duty or this is your obligation. I'm done. Thank you, Green.
You're welcome, Blue. So this card's fun because we actually get conversations with some of the Ishtar team. And you get a little bit more of the lovely Dwayne. Lovely, lovely Dwayne. But Pradith is working with them essentially in this one they're kind of debating all the different aspects going on, as well as can he create a radio to call out? Can he
Oh,
create
yeah, that's
something
right.
with what he's
Yeah.
got? So he's got a few different things, laser pointer, focusing crystal out of his Amalon rifle, which he still has his rifle, which is interesting.
I just love the fact that he acknowledges that Dwayne McKnight is his own worst enemy.
Yep. Let's see here. I think my favorite line in this one is, do you remember the first thing we saw the Vex do? Go for Maya's throat? No, jump into that frame, clear through the air. It's just like, okay, guys.
I just love how one of them is so cheerful.
I just remember reading the Vex cards, or the Vex Grimoire cards, and putting little voices to each of the Ishtar characters. And their personalities are so distinct that even just reading a line without knowing who it was afterwards, you're like, oh, that's that person.
Mm-hmm.
And it was kind of nice to see that again in this entry.
It is interesting. And it's interesting to see what this group is doing, because this is either 227.13 or 227.204. He's not sure which one, but they're all working together. And we do get some clarification about the Ishtar team themselves, not infinite mirror variations of them from different timelines, but simulations all split off from the same base. So he's figured out that it's not like Osiris.
Right.
It's simulations split off from the original, although Osiris is...
Yeah, except Osiris has a multiple man problem.
Yeah, he does.
I love the presentation of that.
Yep. But beyond that, there's not a whole lot in here that I would say is like super needing to be called out, except for the fact that they're trying to build this radio out. And he's MacGyvering it.
God, I love it.
The best way to describe it.
Yeah.
It does briefly talk about losing his ghost, which I kind of thought was a nice full circle after finding his ghost. But it wasn't like extremely significant.
That was the one we took back to Lakshmi, wasn't it?
Yep.
The one that she was like, who is this? What is this?
Mm-hmm.
Why are my signatures on this?
Yeah.
Why do I... She's She's like the old lady. Why is this familiar but not at the same time? What is going on, guys? All right. I think we should move right along then, because I don't
Yep.
see too much going on in this one.
Oh,
Atelic.
it's our favorite.
Yeah. Time. Tag blue.
Oh, no. All right, so atelic is a quality of a verb that shows an action as being incomplete. So, like kind of I had mentioned, whereas telic verbs indicate or refer to events that have endpoints, atelic verbs refer to events or states that don't have endpoints. From a linguistic standpoint, this can launch into a critique that every state or event in the world begins and ends at some point, with the exception of states that can be described along the lines of an existence of the universe, which basically this critique ultimately results in serving as a reminder that linking linguistic semantics to the real world is a futile attempt without considering the intermediary agent of human cognition.
AKA, it is like time itself. There's no end.
It's just
Stop trying.
Don't do it. Basically, it's also argued that atelic verbs are those that do not involve any goal or endpoint and denote actions that are realized as soon as they begin. So the example that a lot of times you'll see for the atelic is the sentence, "She is walking down the street." The action, walking, has not yet been finished, so it is a action that is incomplete. She is eternal. And the point from a linguistic, and the point from a linguistic standpoint is in that sentence as of itself, as it stands, she will never finish walking down the street, because but then if you enter into that's where they refer to the intermediary agent of human cognition, because when we read that sentence, we understand, okay, she is walking down the street. Eventually there will be a conclusion to that, but it's not going to be in that statement of it itself.
Action verbs.
Yeah, fun. Which then we tie into, that is kind of the explanation that is here with the Vex in the garden, and the explanation of time. So this is also, I'm still really happy that Ishtar linked Tevis to this card too, because that makes me feel better about my initial reaction. You want me to just read this card? I think this is because this is, I just love Tevis. I just love Tevis.
This is my favorite card.
So it says, describe time. No, really, give it a go. You're going to say something about a sequence of events, aren't you? Seconds sliced off a clock, marching one by one off into infinity. Go ahead. Use your metaphors. A line, a loop, a flat circle. Heard someone say time was like water once. At least it was novel. The Vex, they're the closest to understanding it. They've got distance from it. If time's a river, then we're fish and they're diving birds. What's wet mean to a fish? What's it mean to an osprey who's never fooled by refraction on the water's surface? Hold on now, you're going to say. This is getting a bit abstract, even for the bodiless echo of a dead guy in the garden. You want concrete truths? Something simple, digestible? A story to keep the dark out? You want time to be a staircase we keep climbing forever. But hey, even a guardian skips back a step or two now and then. Die with your ghost in range and he'll just pop you back to before that bullet, give you the chance to make a fate you like better. Nothing's been simple on Earth since that big white cue ball rolled up in from the next neighborhood over. And the stories, they don't work too well as a nightlight anymore. You're going to say, but the Traveler is our friend. The Traveler likes us. It gave us a golden age and garden worlds and guardians. You're going to say, you wouldn't be alive without it, Mr. Big Shot. Without it, I wouldn't be stuck in the Black Garden making bets with myself on which goblin's going to be the next to slip on a soggy leaf and fall off a cliff either. You took my light already. You better take my advice. I know the void's still calling, but I've come untethered. I can't reach it anymore. So if I'm right that I can reach you, you keep your ears open. I don't care how much you hate hearing it. This is important. The Vex understand time in a way we never will. Doesn't matter how long I spend here watching them. Doesn't matter how many jury-rigged portals guardians fling themselves through. We live in time. They use it as a tool. Any moment that's ever happened, any moment that will ever happen, they can go back to it, play it again till they get it right, simulate it. The light's a counter to that. They come back, a guardian comes back. They simulate an ending, a guardian tears through it. Stalemate. But the Vex in the garden, they bend the knee to the garden's heart. It gives them power till you got lucky. The Vex outside, they made a different calculation. They run. But the Vex inside make the same deal you make every day of your unnatural life. And who's to say that deal won't start paying off for them again sometime soon? You can't understand the Vex, and you don't want to understand the heart. But is your ignorance any more forgivable when it's willful? Lots of questions and not a lot of answers. Better take care, or you'll drown in them, surely as you'll drown in time, whether it's anything like a river or not. You see?
I love that card.
So
I just love Tevis. Like I can't not read that with the with Tevis's like
with the snarkiness.
Oh my god! Like I hear him like with that old elderly growl in the voice, like and the solar quote that you guys had said earlier was just perfect.
So the sole device of making the same deal with the dark side, the darkness, the black
that
heart.
we make with the Traveler.
That's always that's a fun thought experiment as to why the Vex that are outside are running and why they don't know what to do with the sole divisive. Also, within this one, the fact that he mentions that Guardians step back a time or two.
That threw me for a loop.
So it's actually not hard to think about. Like normally when you die in like a strike, when it's not a darkness zone, you don't go back in time because the enemies that you killed are still killed. But if you're in a darkness zone and everybody dies and you wipe, you go back and start over.
Well,
So
but you could also argue that you go back in time, but the time is
that
like,
you're stepping backwards and
your personal timeline is being converted, but you're not affecting the abstract timeline.
That we are stepping out of the stream and going back in at a different place.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yet at the same time, their perspectives of time is still going in the same rate before.
Yes. It's like when you read like in comics, like, you know, speedsters, they experience things as going slow, or they experience things as a normal time. Like Flash will, like, they do this a lot with Flash, but they'll show it from his perspective, and like he's doing things at a normal pace for himself, but he has expedited or expedited his body, and so from an outside perspective, it's super fast. But to him, it's just normal. Like, it's just normal speed.
Is there anything else within this one besides just the fact that we're getting scolded by Tevis and we've had the time conversation a couple different times?
Does there need to be anything else? Like, does there need to be anything else?
I really don't think so.
I do think, though, if that was delivered in any other way besides, like, the snarkiness from Tevis, I don't think it would have had as much impact.
I don't think we would have believed it was Tevis.
Right.
But Joseph? Joseph is...
What did I just do? You know, I hate technology sometimes.
Did you break it?
I accidentally moved my tab into a totally different window.
Nice.
Yeah.
It happens. So, a Joseph is expressing a command. Joseph's subjunctive expresses what the speaker/writer believes should be done in the second or third person. This amounts to a command or prohibition when seen in first person. This usually is called hortatory. I don't know what that. Hortatory subjunctive, which is a form of the verb used to incite or encourage. So,
yay, Latin.
Yeah. Expresses when it should be done. now. Is that a good Jessif?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yes. I'm in
Let's see.
danger.
I'm in danger.
That's all I hear when I hit now. Oh no.
So this is the card where it talks about the pulses. The pulses from outside the vault come quicker now.
Mhm.
More copies of the Ishtar Collective team arrive using them for a boost, leapfrogging in from the dark. Their messages are getting out there, out to the ends of the Vex networks. The pulses are getting strong enough that Shim thinks they have a chance to boost data even beyond the network to physical reality. Whatever physical reality means to them and to Pradith at this point. Lifetimes deep in the Vex projections. Pradith is attuned to the rhythm of the vault. When another pulse lines up with that momentary weakness, that lets his radio work. He pushes a message through. It doesn't bounce back. It has gone through. He whoops raggedly. A dozen Ishtar Collective scientists return the cheer. They start to send messages scattershot wherever they can. Whenever the pulse climbs high enough to boost their signal, that works for a while. Then the pulses get too strong, strong enough to destroy the integrity of the messages. Instead of skimming along the top, riding the wave, the messages tumble through it and shake apart under its power. If they're getting strong enough to unravel data, it could be they're getting strong enough to carry something heavier than a pile of code. It's worth a try, Pradith thinks. Anything is at this point. Something is coming, a tidal wave shadow looming over every timeline he can see. Its peak rises sharp over the earth, breaking the Terminator's arc with a deeper darkness. The city can't escape it. Pradith carves messages into the last functional pieces of his gear, anything that can serve as a bottle for his messages, thrown out on time's ocean. And what does a guardian pay more attention to than their equipment? They'll catch someone's eye, someone. He knows the wave is coming. More visions flicker past him now, burning after images into his eyelids. More timelines, a possibility or eventuality he doesn't know, lost to the encroaching dark. He knows they won't be able to handle it alone. He knows they need a warning. They need to know it's coming. Soon. So I have a question.
Mhm.
Our first instance with No Time to Explain is probably one of these messages as well. With the way that No Time to Explain happened.
Right.
But if he's worried about...
Because the flavor text on No Time to Explain is a single word etched onto the inside of the casing. Soon.
Yeah,
But what is soon? I guess main
correct.
question for that. Is he talking about the dark coming? Is he pyramid ships? Or endless questions of what?
It's unclear at this point, but
Mhm.
whatever it is, it's interesting too because he's had these various visions of different timelines, but he hadn't seen this. So whatever we have done so far has started triggering possibly this aspect to start happening within the Vex timelines. Like we're triggering these events because he hadn't seen them before. Are we capable of altering the timeline because of our paracausality? Which, if Saint is any indication, we are.
Mhm.
Blue, any thoughts on this guy?
I think you're right on there because as a paracausal entity, it's a matter of what is stronger in this regard. Like, how big of a scope is the causal forces against which our paracausality will be pitted against. It's one thing for one person to kind of hop skip a little bit here and there. It's a whole different thing to change an entire, Titanic worth of direction.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to be, again, I think that's where we're going to see Season of Dawn start to kind of answer that question is, and then, also the question too is like, remember that it's not just one Guardian. we have an army of guardians. So if, is there a way to channel all that paracausal capability?
Here's my question: is the reason why it's happening now, because there's been guardians for quite a long time, even with Praedyth and Pahanan and Pajari. Is it because our guardian is affecting other paracausal forces within the universe that this is causing the timelines to adjust? Because if it's not, because guardians are always that extra factor anyway, right? So
Mhm.
everything a guardian does could theoretically change the course of time. But because we're also affecting other things that are paracausal as well, although the undying mind isn't necessarily paracausal, it's just because it's outside of time within the networks and everything until we start dragging it into the Black Garden during the Vex offensive. Also, how do we know we have all of them killed?
How do we know we have all the undying?
Ikora
Mhm.
said so. Why would
I
she ever
don't.
lie to us?
I don't.
That's what I have to say. Do we actually know?
All of them they could monitor. Vuru caught that too.
Yeah.
So there may be more Vex minds, undying minds out there that we just couldn't see or
Right.
couldn't monitor.
No. That would be silly.
There could be infinite possibilities in an
Like
infinite
I
space.
said, depending on the model of multiverse that we're operating on.
Right.
Yeah. Just like a side note, when we were talking in the intro session, this is where I started questioning, when is this actually happening? Because
Yeah.
they talk about kind of hinting at the no time to explain with soon part.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to us, we got that years ago. So is this something that he saw now, that to the past to warn us about something? Or
I mean, we just gave Saint 14 the shotgun that Saint 14 gives us in Curse of Osiris.
right, we had
after reforging
argument
it,
about that in our clan.
Yeah, after we had to remake it, even though it's sitting in our vault.
Right.
I mean, it's made with love.
I'm like, where are you going with that, Grain? Where are you going? I mean.
Made with love for Sainty. Okay, so
break time. Yeah, we break time a lot.
Well, I mean, we're just learning to step. A little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit. Do you want to talk about how Maya Shim and Dwayne McKnight step and then volative card?
Oh gosh.
Oh.
That's this one.
Volative, denoting a verb
this
or
is,
mood that expresses a desire. In certain languages, this is a verb form which indicates that a certain action is willed, although it may not be performed in fact, aka you can wish to do something right the first time, but it may not happen. And poor Maya, Shim, and Dwayne. Here's how it goes. You and Maya and Shim and Dwayne McKnight take your first cautious sliding steps into the Vex information network. You get your footing. You've got to translate everything into metaphor to understand it. Here, and this is like tightrope walking on a grease line. You and Maya lean into each other. Shim slips and you help him up. You explore, you go on. And basically there's like multiple versions of this. Some where you lose Dr. Shim, some where you lose Maya. It's not a fun kind of thing. Maya gets lost a lot, apparently.
Yeah.
She's
is
really
kinda
bad
sad.
at following directions or reading maps.
Is that? I mean, is it maps or is it just?
No, I just love the fact that she's the one that constantly gets lost. Like, I'm like, seriously? Listen.
It goes back to what you were saying, where it's like, as soon as they split off from each other, like, yeah, they're the same person, but then it's like they almost have their destinies when they split.
Yeah.
Or they
Yeah.
make
I mean,
their own path.
it's the multiple man error, which is what I refer to. There's a guy in I think it's Marvel who's called Multiple Man. He's able to split himself into multiple people or multiple iterations of himself. The problem is that once they're split from him, like they were him at the moment of splitting, but then and you see this also
They're
with
all their own person.
yeah, they develop their own personalities. And there's a point in the comic where actually it goes like years and he doesn't bring them back, and there's one who like rebels against it. And it's this huge thing. And then like in this recent one, we have an instance where one of Osiris's projections I think commits suicide. He kills himself, if I remember correctly. And Osiris is like,
I haven't read that one.
yeah, it's either he kills himself or he does something that he wasn't, like, he's not supposed to do, but he goes against Osiris's like wishes. Basically, he develops his own personality, and it's called out because Osiris is like, huh, that's never happened.
Weird. Let's see. There's not really a happy ending to this card. Like,
No.
even like there's really not. And is it from Chioma's perspective?
Yes.
That's how I took it, yeah.
I'm
really
reading it
would
from
agree with
Chioma's
that.
perspective too.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's Maya didn't like bracelets, said they always fouled her work. Her hair had been getting shaggy again and was due for a trim. She could never decide whether or not to grow it out. She laughed at you lifting weights to maintain simulated muscle, but she spotted for you all the same. Which Chioma was she was the one who was kind of the bodybuilder back in the original cards, wasn't she? Like she was the lifter back then too.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just not really. That was not my Xbox. You can chill.
The ding?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was not
I
me.
think that was Matt's. My husband.
Not mine.
Calling Green out on stuff.
Blue's getting excited. And if you do hear it, it's me because I've rested my foot up where the Xbox is and accidentally turned it on because I've done that more often than I can.
It's better than a dog's nose. A dog's nose will turn it off.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah.
Buddy's asleep right now, so I'm good.
No,
Okay.
so my notification noise is the Galler.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really obnoxious. It doesn't get turned on a lot.
Foyer transform on yourself down the sundial. I mean, Ver is talking in chat. You've got to translate everything into metaphor to understand it here, and this is like doing a foray transform on yourself down the blade of a sundial. Interesting phrasing at the end. I mean, it's abstract concepts. Abstract concepts cannot be defined because language cannot accurately be created at the moment to define it. So abstraction, it makes sense that they would have to create their own metaphors to understand what's going on. But that brings us to the last card, which we kind of talked about at the very beginning, Irialis. Blue, did you want to go into Irialis a little bit before I just read and finish this guy out?
Yeah, definitely. So Irialis, like I said, it's basically the bookend that is opposed to Realis. And it's a verb that is inflicted to indicate that an act or a state of being is not a fact. Although the only Irialis mood in English is the subjunctive mood, some other languages include additional Irialis moods, including cohortive, jussive, speculative, and optative. So we talked about jussive a little bit above. The example within English is the phrase, "It is necessary that he work." And what that refers to here is the desirable state of affairs, not the reality of the fact. So in this situation, in this example, the subject, he, could be refusing or rejecting to work, thus the subjunctive mood of work. So you don't have working, you have just the tense work. Whereas with a realis, the statement would be he is working. This one is he, I just scrolled away. It is necessary that he work. Like it's something that's not currently happening, so therefore it might not happen.
But it should happen.
It's the desired state.
Desired state of the intent of the phrase.
Right.
So what is the non-reality that we're going to read here?
I think that it's really the next line. Like after the last line here, it's a matter of, they are always, I'm going to jump to the end. They are always stepping through. So the desired end is that they stepped through, but they're not stepping through, or they haven't stepped through. They are stepping through, which is a really annoying sentence to say. But it's the same as what we were kind of talking about with the italic. They are stepping through, whereas the action of stepping is not yet finished. And so the irrealis is that they would like to have stepped through, but they have not done that yet. They are still in the process of stepping. So we don't know for a fact that they actually succeeded on this. What is it? The MacGyver.
The data.
What was it? The
transfer.
data transfer, the USB stick.
Yeah. I thought the easiest way for me to think about it was like making a bridge between point A and B, which is very like dumbed down version of it. But it
I like the
to
fact
me.
that Chioma tells Maya that she's an angel. It's just, again, going back to Chioma as the weightlifter. It just made me laugh because how big is a transistor compared to a pin? Are you calling me an angel?
It's such a strange.
I just love it. I just love them. Oh my gosh.
They're ornery. They're super ornery between. So, the garden wakes and the undying mind wakes with it. It rises from the burrow that has grown up around it, shedding vines and hanging moss like bed sheets. Circuits flood with power, pass the excess along to the next in line, flex massive limbs and boot sequences. Goblins write more circuits and wield them to the mind, building it up to take the advantage of the power. Not an occasional pulse now, but a steady hum. Their faith has been rewarded. In the vault, 183 sets of simulated Golden Age scientists flex their own limbs, ready to make a break for it. Pradith, kneeling at his radio, shakes out his hands. They're stiff. He's stiff, queasy with exertion and worry, and a stack of lifetimes in a cell, but ready. How big is a transistor compared to a pin, do you know? He can't tell which Maya is speaking. There are 165 of her spread between the teams. Are you calling me an angel? This is Chioma, amused. Pradith knows which team it is now. 227.72s. Chioma sounds hoarser than the others. He doesn't know why. Maya again. Would you like to dance? Dwayne McKnight snorts in 100-part harmony, and 80 shims grin and elbow him in the metaphorical ribs. It's a slim chance, but a chance they all need. The garden's massive doors hums, an echo of the song the goblins sing as they tend the flowers. The first minotaur readies itself to step through, shield coming awake around it. Everything that has happened is, from a certain point of view, always happening. Everything that will happen is happening. If you know how to slice the ribbon of chronology thin enough, you can step through to the necessary moment, if you know how to tear it. 160 Mayas reach for Chiomas by their side. 158 Chiomas reach back. One Pradith, waiting for the conductor's baton to drop. Unaccountable Vex in the garden, waiting for the same event. Is not a synchrony none of them notice. Somewhere a veil is always lifting. Somewhere Caber is always dooming himself. Somewhere a door is always opening. Somewhere they are always stepping through. Do you think that this is foreshadowing for an event that we're actually going to see?
I would like it to be.
Right?
Do you think we'll get to
Be
return to
wishful
the vault?
thinking, though.
I mean, I can see us going back to the vault for something else.
Yeah, I think with all the Vex happening, we've had so many answers from the vault that there's a possibility that we could go back there to see if we can dig up more.
Mm-hmm.
He's gonna be so heartbroken.
But are we going to be able to read the answers? I think is the real question. Like, are we going to be able to see are we going to be able to see the answers like how Pradith has seen them?
Pradith, I think once Pradith walks out, won't be able to see it. Well, he's not walking out. The Shim and them are walking out, but I don't think they'll have access to it anymore once they leave. But it'll be interesting to see if it goes on. Blue. Shoutouts?
Yeah.
Final thoughts?
I mean, I think that's the other two is like the question of where is this? I think my final thought on this is where are they stepping out? Like, are they becoming real in Pradith's realm, or are they all stepping out of the prison that is Pradith is in? Does that make sense?
I mean, they're stepping out into the Vex network again from Pradis. Like, they went from the Pradis prison into the Vex network and then trying to step out of the network itself.
But where are
into-
they stepping out? Are they stepping out into his
Right.
prison cell? Or are they stepping out into
No.
like the tower?
Reality is what it seems like, into the vault, possibly.
Right. So, but I mean, I guess that's what I'm asking is when they leave the network, because I agree. I think that this is the Spelunker teams leaving the network, but
Right.
yeah, and see, Dino's kind of touching on it too. Is like, are they trying to possess Vex, or are they trying to create themselves? Like, are they I mean, that's where my question kind of is like, what exactly is the goal here, right? Like, what's trying to be done?
God. The
Right?
idea of them
Right?
possessing Vexes makes that whole cutscene at the beginning of Shadowkeep
Mhm.
way creepier.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like, that's the thing is like, I mean, because it also begs the question: is this also Pradith trying to escape? I mean, I know he's probably trying to escape, but is he actually trying to escape, or is he just orchestrating this to allow them to leave the network and come into reality? Which then begs the question: which reality is it? His, or is it ours? Like, what it
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Is it the reality in which Aldrin actually shows up, or are we just going to get that silly ship with him and poor Aldrin?
Pretty sure that's going to happen in the dawning.
Poor Aldrin. They did such a good job with that card, by the way. Like, making you feel sorry for him.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway. I don't know if the dawning Season of the Dawn, the name of the season has kind of bugged me, and it's like it's too simple, too on the nose for me to think that it's just in reference to the dawning itself, but the dawning of a new era within the game, perhaps, or dawning of something
Right.
coming back, like
Or
the
is it
Black
shedding
Heart.
light on something?
Mm-hmm. It's just
I'm
what are we
hoping
going to
it's
see?
shedding light on something because answers are really nice times.
I mean, we have a lot of interesting things pop up this season already. I
Right.
can't wait to dig into constellations. But beyond that, shout outs for me as
Yep.
far as for this evening. Shout out to live chat who always keeps us on our toes, always keeps us honest, always has some great ideas as well as some great funny moments too. I'm looking at you, Vero. Thank you guys for showing up week after week. We really appreciate that. Paige, you got anything?
Well, most of them have gone to bed, but shout out to my clan for supporting me because they actually get to listen to me talk with people of like minds instead of me talking at
Yay!
them.
Yay!
Shout out to my husband who's attempting to be quiet. He gives me the eyes. But otherwise, just shout out to you and Blue for having me.
Yeah. It's
I
been
like
fun.
chit-chatting.
You know what I kind of want to do, Blue?
Uh-oh. Yes.
And I'm getting this on recording that this is something I'd like to do. This is not necessarily something we will do, but I know we have like the round table with the quote unquote lore masters group kind of
Yeah,
thing.
the
but
DLQR.
yeah, I'd like to do something with others that it's just not just like a live chat, but have like people come in possibly just to do like a let's chat where we're just discussing thing a little bit less formally,
Mm-hmm.
but just kind of debating the theories and stuff like that and just randomly throwing out theories and discussing them and everybody's
Oh
idea.
gosh.
So my
Mhm.
first question back to you
See,
is:
that's-
Are we gonna allow Rick on to that show?
Yep, he wants to do that. He wants to do
no.
timeline talk with you.
That's a rabbit hole. You're gonna push someone down the rabbit hole and it's never gonna end.
No, I know. But the thing is it's Man at Arms. So why not put Man at Arms on the freaking show
Whoa,
to talk
okay,
about timeline
let's-
and blow his mind?
let's think about what you just said there. Why not put Man at Arms on?
Blue, he asked me. He approached me about this, not me asking him. He approached me about coming on and doing this.
I love his Titans take on lore, the
Uh-huh.
daily. I think someone was saying, look at a Titan's take on lore. He's beating down the Warlock's synopsis into crayon size bits.
I think it would be cool to have like almost like a debate team go on where you have to bring up your point of views and your theories and you guys get to either deny them or support them. I think that would be
like
cool.
a challenge the lore people kind of thing.
Yeah, that would be
Ooh,
fun.
That gets scary.
I'm gonna require a lot of phone a friends on those.
Right?
Oh yeah.
It's
Okay,
like-
so picture that happens to me in the clan all the time. They're like, Paige, why do you think this? Or Paige, that doesn't make sense. I'm like, but lore.
You have that
You gotta
crazy,
look at the
crazy look in your
lore.
eye.
Yup.
Oh man. All right. Blue.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think again, one more big shout out to all the narrative team for Season of the Dawn, and also a big shout out to, I think it's Ariella, who was the author of this particular lore book. It's just amazing job. Seriously amazing job.
For sure.
Ooh.
Yes.
Shout out to the devs in general for all the QLR quality of life
Mhm.
updates that we've gotten. There are so many different things that have just been changed slightly that it's brought back kind of the old feel of D1, but also have kept the integrity of what D2 is, and I'm enjoying it thoroughly.
Well, that, and I mean, I was explaining to someone the other day just like how mind-boggling it is, the support that the Destiny devs give. You know, it's like, if you actually think about it, we get a weekly update of things, and we've been getting weekly updates for this game since launch. Like, they've never missed an update. Like, there's sometimes it'll take a little bit longer, which, I mean, whatever. That's just being in IT. But like, there's always an update, and I just think that I mean, when you stop and think about that just really doesn't. It's not very common in today's games, and you know, I think that should be. I'm really glad that, you know, on Game Awards they got that award, because that really does. It really is something that sets them apart, and it just really is something that, you know, even as a casual player, is really appreciated. I think that's just, I mean, they just seriously, they don't hesitate to communicate. They don't hesitate to, yeah, Dancing's talking about the community artist publicity. That's freaking amazing.
Just the,
Yeah.
the
Well,
fact
they
that you
sharing,
can buy, like,
yeah,
Ponkus's shirt and poster.
yeah, they're sharing their store space with them. I mean, that's really unheard of. Like, I don't know any other publisher that really does that.
Well, their support and their communication throughout the Destiny community is just phenomenal.
Yeah, it really is. It really is.
Even if you just follow like the Bungie help page on Twitter, when something pops up, they're not waiting hours and hours to address it. Like, hey, this right now, and we know it's happening. We're working to fix it.
Right. And
So
I mean,
that's
and
always
that's, yeah,
nice to see.
Yeah, it really is. So I mean, but a huge shout out to them. I think they definitely got the award that they earned that very much. So I also love the fact that Luke nearly dropped it. I have not seen anyone mention that, and every time I watch it, I die laughing. Like, I just, like, the look on his face too is just, oh my gosh, it's
He's
so
like,
great.
oh, that almost happened.
I'm like, I'm tempted to, because like, of like, was he actually playing, or did he actually nearly drop it? I'm pretty sure he's playing, but there's a part of me that's like, I don't know. But no, yeah, it's huge. I mean, huge shout out to them. But I don't have anything else. Green, did you have any announcements that we needed to get out of the way?
One more week of recording this month, and then Blue and I are going on holiday. But we should still. I'm trying to think. Do we have something else coming out at the end of this month?
No, no, I don't. But if you do, what I am trying to do is I'm putting in, and I need to announce this on Twitter too to start getting questions for this. I am trying to get together with a family member, extended family member of mine who is a CPA. I know that there's a lot of times around the New Year's, there's a lot of questions about what you need to do to get ready for tax prep and stuff. So I'm actually going to be sitting down with him and kind of walking through just like some basic, you know, FAQs. So for content creators specifically. So if there is anybody out there who listens and who has like questions, please shoot them over to me so that I can get them over to him so he can, you know, start preparing, because obviously legality reasons. He just needs to make sure that he gives a correct answer and all that. So if you do have questions of that nature, I will be putting out something on Twitter here, hopefully this weekend, I believe, about that. So, but yeah, other than that, I don't think I have anything else. So as always, until next time, goodbye.
And you can stop recording. And the next part is just to export it.
All right. Export.
What kind of a laptop are you on? Pretty
Lenovo
fun.
Yoga.
Is that a newer one or a little bit older, or?
Oh gosh, it's a newer one.
Okay. You might be able to do a wave export. If not, you can always
it says
do
export as wave.
It just might take a while
Okay.
because it's a bigger file. But if you need to go to MP3, we can do that too.
Alrighty.
And then I will get you. Maybe.
And then
Shotgun pistol.
let's see.
No.
Where is there's audio? Man, my extra hard drive is just filled with so much audio.
Did you see Bife? Bife said he cleaned up his
Oh
hard
my
drive.
gosh.
He had like 3 terabytes.
That's insane.
Which, I mean,
Holy-
given how much he does, I mean, it makes sense, but it was like, I was like, holy shit.
Oh my gosh. It was, yeah. I mean, video file, I understand it's just so much bigger, but still.
I have to give that man props. Like, I pointed everyone to like the recap of Destiny when New Light came out. I'm like, watch this. If you want to know what's going on, watch this. But I can only imagine the amount of time that it took.
Like, yeah, that took an immense amount of time. And then one of his guy friends was helping transcribe it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, watching his sanity slowly break down over time.
Oh my gosh.
Because he's like, I have to listen to so many Bife voices.
I will say, when we were at Guardian, we were walking around and I had the notifications from the app of when the signings were going on and everything. And I'm like, oh, Bife's going to be here. I turn around and Bife is right there. Like, I almost smack dab into him. And Matt, my husband, looks at me. He's like, did you really do that? I'm like, yep, I did.
Oh.
Okay, I think it exported.
Is the
Yep.
little file nice?
Yeah, it only took a minute or so.
Nice. You do have a good computer.
Well,
And
it
then-
has, I don't know. I had Mikey help me pick it out. He's good with that stuff.
Nice. And then he blue dropped the location for the file to go to in our chat. And then I have one more question for you before anything.
I'm going to
Yes,
jump
ma'am.
off stream because I'm going to pass out. So, stream, have a great night.
Night,
We will
stream.
see you later.
Good night.